with our friend Scott Newman. Glad you made it. Been looking forward to this all week since we set it up.
Makes one of us.
Yeah. Both of our viewers were very excited. They both emailed me and told me how happy they were about this. So that makes three of us that are pleased.
I don't know if it's better or worse that there's less people. If there's more people, then you have a better chance of hitting. But there's less people that probably both won't like it.
Right. I'll hear from both of them if they don't. I'll tell you that. You see our little studio? I figured you're into video, so I thought I'd get your opinion about what we're doing here.
It's a good use of a dining room, definitely. Most people don't use the dining room at all.
No.
Yeah, they eat anywhere but the dining room.
Yes.
In beds.
I wonder how many
TV.
people there are using it now with the Corona thing.
Oh, definitely
yeah.
a couch.
Yeah.
That's where I'm eating all my meals. We have a specific table that we bought because we're going to be eating all our meals here. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the dining room table. We're just going to put trash there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great. This is a better setup than I've ever had.
Oh, well, cool.
I mean, I use like two phones on the side and then like one DSLR with a kit lens for the most part.
Right.
I mean, especially with stuff that you're invited to.
Yeah, there you go. Put that in there. I like that.
No, I mean, I've been working on some more serious stuff where we like light block, but it's more like narrative based content that we're trying to build, and that's with some other production companies. But this is awesome, man. You got lights on us, so I don't look. I mean, you can see all of what's bad about me.
Right, there we go. Well, we got them turned kind of amberish, so it gives you a nice little glow.
I don't look like too white. I don't look like ghost white.
Yeah.
It's funny, actually. Like, I was like, oh, I might be videoed because I saw this. I didn't know until I clicked the link, and then I was like, oh, it's a YouTube video?
So you took your pajamas off?
Okay, I mean, I'm still wearing them on the lower part, but, you know. No, but I was like, oh, my mustache was kind of getting into my mouth a little bit, and so I was like, I trimmed it. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to shave this out. And then I went too far one time. And then I ended up like shaving all of this. And it looks so patchy and awful. Like I can't grow a beard when I had one literally like 7 o'clock this morning. So yeah, that happened. And I was like, I got to go. I want to be late. But then he was late
So
anyway.
you didn't know we did video too?
I should have shaved the whole thing if I knew he was going to be 10 minutes late. I could have done like shaving cream and all that jazz. But you would have seen my whole like double chin
Yeah,
that I've been working on. Yeah.
Your Corona chin?
Yeah, there was that one stupid article about it, and it was just like, no, shave your beards. Like, it's going to get caught in your beard and this and that. And Ellie was like, shave it. Like, shave it. And I was like, you won't be attracted to me for like 3 weeks if I shave it.
So when you're filming for your invited, do you guys use a lot of phones for filming?
We do. I tell people, like, if you have an idea, go shoot it with your phone and give it to me to edit it. And then if it's like worth reshooting, then we'll reshoot it. But if it's good enough, like it is what the stupid concept is, that's all people care about.
Well, it's crazy how well they film. I mean, these phones are like crazy. I see videos from them. They're really good.
They're better than like a camera you would pay for with a kit lens every time.
Yes.
You can buy a nice prime lens, but then you're spending $900, $1,100 just on a lens.
Yes.
And then you need a camera that fits it, which is the camera is actually less important in my opinion as far as visually. So yeah, I mean, these phones are $1,100 and $800 of it is a camera anyways, like a very nice digital camera.
Like which ones do you recommend for the filming?
iPhone.
iPhones, yeah.
iPhone.
iPhones really have incredible cameras.
And just the longevity of it. I just feel like Samsung, there's so many issues that happen with or Android, whatever, even though iPhones are made with Android parts for the most part.
Yeah, so that's what's crazy about it.
Yeah, I don't know why they get the better parts.
Yeah.
At iPhone. Apple.
So what kind of projects have you done?
Most recently, it was right before the whole thing started, the whole Corona, at least in America. But it's something that my friend Eric Camry, Eric Kumas, his middle name is Camry, I think, but or he drives a Camry. I can't remember.
Eric in the Camry? Or,
yeah.
Okay.
No, his middle name's David, that's right. Anyways, I worked with him on one short film last year, and he wrote the script, and I read it maybe last November. It was originally called Secondhand Heat. It was about gun running. 22 or maybe 19 pages at the time, and I fell in love with it. I feel like it was really tight, structured, unique characters, but like characters you can obviously get acquainted with. And then for one of the characters, the character was actually named Scott, it was like a cheating husband type of deal. I thought of my friend Johnny Walter, who I met on a TV pilot like when I was 20.
Yeah.
And he's been doing like photography out in LA. So I sent him the script. I was like, I want you to play this part. I know you can play a good douchey kind of cheating husband guy.
Right.
And he was like, No, it's not meaty enough. I want the main part. And I think this whole thing, it could actually be a TV series.
Oh, cool.
So we just like kind of ran with it, got some other people involved, and now instead of Secondhand Heat, it's called Runners. It's a little more, I think, approachable as a title. But I don't know. It's something. Oh yeah, so we just shot this. We used the El Montan Hotel on San Pedro
Okay.
as like the main location, and then we shot some other locations. But we flew him down here to like shoot a teaser to eventually put an Indiegogo campaign to
Oh,
make the
cool.
whole thing, and then we're gonna try to pitch that to studios.
Nice.
So that's kind of like the big thing that we've been working on, that we've invested a lot of money in. But
How many people do you work with when you do this?
I mean, so we started with 5 producers, I guess. My friend Tanvir, the guy who's I co-do You're Invited with, Brian Powell. Tanvir Aurora is a comedian who's just, he has some money and he knows people who have money, and he has a whole Sikh Indian community. So we thought that'd be a wise choice, and he's just a good guy, like you know, and I think he has good insight and he's real encouraging. He doesn't know a lot about film per se, but he knows a good project when he sees it.
Right.
And then the owner of Press Coffee, who is my boss also, Bronson Holbrook, he has a Canon C200, and he's bought a few lenses so we can like shoot from like Netflix quality type of deal.
Yeah.
And so he fell in love with the idea too, and then. Me? Does that make 5? Yeah, so that's the 4 that I work with.
And what is it you do? What is your role in
I mean,
there?
I'll eventually edit it, you know. I mean, I'm definitely the most experienced editor, but I just know how to put things together. I know to, you know, Eric thinks of a cast, Eric too. He's the creator of this. But Eric thinks of somebody to cast, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. Let's do it. Like, go reach out to them. Go do it. Do it. You haven't done it yet? Go do it. Like, that's my job, is to like make things get done.
So you're the pusher.
Yeah, I'm the pusher, and once everything is pushed, I can kind of stand back and start taking care of the data aspect of everything, because that's always a hassle. So I understand everything that needs to get done, making backups, stuff like that.
Right.
Which is definitely important in film production, because there's so many times where
Yeah. Things can go real bad.
I've cried
and
over
you lose
projects.
everything.
Yeah. There's one wedding that I shot when I was 19, and I didn't back it up in that hard drive.
Oh no.
And it was like 15 hours of footage. It was like 5 hours on 3 cameras, and I don't have it. Like, and I recorded over the tapes, and I never got paid for it, but I felt devastated.
Oh my, yeah, that's terrible.
I could have. He should have killed me.
Oh man, I follow a like F Stoppers. I don't know if you know who they are. They're a YouTube channel that talk about photography and stuff. And
I should probably watch more of that.
And they are always like, I mean, their big thing every time they review a camera is, does it have 2 card slots? So you're duplicating everything as you're shooting, because they're like, if you lose a wedding, it's like, I mean, you could be sued into oblivion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Which
that's the
made
whole
me,
thing.
I was thinking, you know, man,
Yeah, these don't have 2 card slots though.
these do not,
Yeah.
no. But we're not even recording to them. We just use
I
them for
know.
the sensor.
Man, the sensor. Yeah, the 2 card slots have been so helpful shooting.
Yeah.
We shot on CFast cards for this project, which there's not 2 CFast card slots. But as soon as it's like a card swiped, I'm backing it up. I'm like duplicating the data. I'm like Bronson didn't understand that. He was just like, you're going to bring your whole computer on set? I was like, yeah, you want me to run home and go duplicate it while we're using the other card and run back and forth?
Yeah.
Let me just bring my whole computer and set it up. I set it up in a little closet in there. Like, you just got to make do, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just terrible, losing all that stuff. So what's the deal with Press Coffee? I see your feeds and stuff. I'm always seeing you making your little first press of the day.
How far do you want me to go back on this one? You want me to start at the beginning?
No, that's all right.
My dad gave me coffee on a camping trip when I was 7 or 9, and that's when I fell in love with coffee. No, specifically Press Coffee was the first coffee date that me and Ellie, my wife, went to. We were like on our way to Starbucks on San Pedro, and they used to be located on San Pedro.
Okay.
And I just saw this little like cute little sign that said coffee this way, and it was like an experience of coffee, you know what I mean? It was like the whole atmosphere, and that's all they did was coffee. They had some pastries too, but it was obviously like a coffee shop.
Right.
It wasn't this conglomerate,
Right.
which I was used to with Starbucks. So I fell in love with it, and then maybe like I've always So I've always wanted to work at Starbucks, and I've applied, and I can't pass those online personality tests. I cannot get an interview because
you can't get an interview?
I can't pass those like 100-question online personality tests.
I didn't know they did that.
I mean, they used to do it when I was like 17 to 20 at least.
And what is it they're looking for?
I have no idea, but it's not me.
You.
Yeah, I think I would have always like been great at the job, but I could never get an interview. I would go into stores and be like, manager, who's your manager? And they'd be like, oh, apply online. They're like, I'm the manager, apply online. I'm just like, okay, I have. Like,
they don't want you.
They don't want me. Oh, so yeah, so.
Crazy.
And similar story with Press Coffee. So there was also this other coffee shop called Beat Street Coffee, and eventually I was going to like different coffee shops with Ellie, just like checking them out, kind of understanding the coffee culture that is here in San Antonio. And there was one place called Beat Street Coffee, owned by this guy Chase. They already closed down. They had a terrible location, and he also had like a truck. And I did some work with him, but ultimately like I love Press Coffee. Like Press made better coffee. Press had good coffee. The atmosphere was there. The customers were there. And I harassed Bronson for a job. I would like try to catch him. I like ran into the HEB at once. I was like, hey, you need some hour? Like anybody? I know I don't have any experience, but I'm down. Like I'll learn. And then eventually Chris Condi quit, and I like made friends with Chris Condi. He's a local rapper.
Yeah, I've seen it on your page and feed and stuff.
So he used to write for the SA Current. He just got let go, but he was working there. And then he got the job at the SA Current. And then Bronson was like, all right, I guess I could use you this Thursday. And I just went there and fell in love with it. Like I wasn't even making coffee. I just loved. I mean, I had already worked at a bowling alley for so long that like customer service was in my blood. And he was like, you need to be able to work in fast-paced environments. And I was like, you don't know fast-paced like a bowling alley, like especially the one I worked at where we were severely understaffed.
Well, I worked where you worked. Well, I didn't work. I worked.
You did the construction.
I did the construction in the bowling alley.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I do.
Yeah, you were working there, and I did the construction there.
That's so funny. Yeah, I was there for 6 years. So. Which was good and bad. I definitely learned a lot of life lessons at that place.
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss it sometimes. It's definitely like a different home.
So so you didn't know anything about how to make the coffee and do
not
all
specifically. Like Natalie, his wife. I went in there one day and I had bought a French press and I was like, how do y'all make French presses? Like they're called press coffee. I always loved their French press. How do y'all make it? And she taught me how to make it at home. She was like, boil the water, let it sit for a minute, then the temperature is good. And then you pour it, this and that, whatever, coarse grind, all that jazz.
Right.
And I learned how to make a good cup of coffee at home. And I always loved black coffee, like since I was maybe 15 or 16. So I actually like coffee. So
yeah.
I kept bothering him for a job, and I was like, can I shoot some things? And then he started to get into video production, and that's the only reason probably why
he hired me. So he wasn't into video production, and you weren't in.
He was like getting into it.
Oh, okay.
When I started getting there, he started kind of getting into video production. He had his friend like Ian helping him, driving down from Austin to actually shoot the stuff. Then he got like a little Lumix camera, and he just like slowly built up. And he found, I think he likes equipment more than I do at this point. Like I don't care what I shoot with,
Right.
I'll make it work. If it's trashy, it's because it's how we shot it,
Right.
and that's just, you have to adapt.
Right.
That's how I've always worked because I worked all the way from VHS. You know what I mean? VHS to VHS-C.
I remember you were always into this for as long as I've known you. You've been interested in this.
I don't even like it anymore. It's just I have to do it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I got the job there. I didn't really make coffee, and then we closed down, and then we had a 10-month hiatus. I got another job somewhere at that Alexander Marchand place for a month, and then I worked with my dad, and then I got a job at Conduit, which is like customer service. Anyways, and then we reopened, and then I was like, I need to learn, and he gave me hours, so I could learn. You know what I mean? And then so that's why you see me post every day. It's because
every day I see you, or almost every. It's often I see you do your
latte art.
Yeah, your latte or
just making coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I miss it right now. I've been out of it for maybe 3 or 4
Are they
weeks.
closed down? Are they doing to-go orders?
Yeah, to-go, curbside. I've worked a couple of hours, but
how's that working out? I'm curious how restaurants are actually doing with that.
Jeez, man. Daily down maybe like 65-70%. Easy. Every day. Weekends maybe 50%.
And how long do you think restaurants are going to be able, like a restaurant like that? I mean, to be able to bridge this time? How long do you think they
there's
can
all
take
these
it?
new loans, so who really knows? There's these loans that they're offering. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
basically they're gifts if you use them in certain ways. So.
Right. Like payroll.
Yeah.
Bronson, I know you're looking at it. You can hire me back. No, No, he's definitely not watching this. He's not one of those two.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Like, it depends on the leniency of renters. You know, it depends on all of that stuff. Because if if it was down to like nobody's deferring payments and stuff like that, they're shutting down in a month or two. You know what I mean? Easily. It's not worth it for them to stay open for the amount of hours they work. They can literally make money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like more money just working at HEB.
Yes. Well, that's right.
Yeah, like right now, what they're making is sustaining them.
Did
barely.
you hear HEB was like planning for this from like November? Did you read that article?
Well, it seems like they have.
They have a 36-acre warehouse
Oh wow.
that they built, and they filled it.
They built it
expecting
in
this.
November.
No, I don't think they built it in November, but they got it ready for that.
Wow.
And in November, they started tracking this in China, and the CEO.
So HEB has intelligence agents that are better than, not necessarily better, but more informed or
It would
different
seem.
information, not necessarily more informed.
They're acting differently with the information, perhaps.
Huh.
Isn't that crazy, though?
That is very
And that's why they
interesting.
came out and told San Antonio, mainly, don't worry,
Don't
we're
worry.
we're ready. 36-acre warehouse, not the parking in it, just the warehouse is 36
Talk about
acres.
hoarding.
Yeah. So, you're thinking, wow, that's incredible. And that's why they're like telling people, don't worry about it. We're ready. We're ready. We got
That is
this
so
covered."
funny.
I know. Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy?
I definitely go to HEB. Like, I'd rather stand in line at HEB than walk into a Walmart. Nine times out of
There's
10.
no lines hardly at Walmart.
No,
It's
there's
No?
almost empty. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, people don't
Don't
like
trust
grocery
it.
shopping at Walmart.
Not
They
in,
don't know
not
what
in
they-
Texas, at least.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's interesting. Because here there is. Even in our little town, there's a line.
At
And-
Walmart?
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
man. Just
At
at HEB.
HEB. Yeah, at HEB.
Yeah, Walmart there isn't.
But you know what's crazy? I went into HEB, and I wanted to buy. I like red beans and rice. I always like it. One of my favorite
I feel
dishes.
like I saw
ever.
that on one of your posts.
I love red beans and rice. And so I went in there, and it's like you can buy all the meat you want. They're like the meat aisle's full.
Not
They're-
where I live.
The bean aisle empty. Nothing. Not one bag
Which
of
is actually
beans.
sustainable.
I know
Yeah.
and rice, beans gone. And every day I asked the teller, and she says we stock it every day. Every day they say they fill that aisle, and every day it's like gone. Toilet paper, beans and rice gone every day.
That's funny. Definitely, there's a lot of, I mean, like, not beans. There's a lot of canned food. Rice is gone, too. Yeah, but chicken's gone.
Pasta?
Like, chicken is gone, like, fresh chicken.
Yes.
That's gone. But not beef.
Yeah, beef, pork, that was just full. I could have bought all I wanted of that, but there was no pasta, no rice, no
Yeah.
beans. I think it's because people are worried they're not making any money, and that's the cheapest thing to eat.
That's definitely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stocked up on that Thursday when they started announcing that we might go into lockdown or whatever.
Yeah.
Shelter at home. I stocked up, and Ellie was like, "You're crazy," and then she got out of work and saw that it's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? Like, you want me to just sit back and like let them take everything when we don't have a full fridge? We eat out all the time, and you're
Yeah.
used to me having money. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, see, that's the thing also. I think that a lot of people think that people are like hoarding, and there are some crazy people that are going and buying.
they're
you know.
stocking up 36 acres
Yeah.
of a warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. So, they think that, they're hoarding. I'm not sure that many people are doing that. I think that everyone eats out, and now they're not.
Less.
And
Yeah, definitely less.
Right. And so if you're not eating out every day, you're eating a lot more food than you used to at home.
Yeah.
And you got to buy that. I mean, if we were like back in the 80s when everyone ate dinner at home together,
Right.
we would have 4 times as many grocery stores than we do now.
Yeah, we would.
And half as many restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not
Which
convinced
it might
that it's
shift
like
to that. It might
and-
end up shifting to that.
Well,
if-
that's the thing that restaurants ought to be a little concerned about, right?
I think restaurants are turning to grocery stores. Like,
Yeah. Well, didn't you hear one of them got shut down for doing that?
oh really?
And fined? Yes, they started selling produce.
Still
and
Golden's
they didn't,
doing
you
that.
have to have like a permit.
Still
do it.
Golden's definitely going to get shut down. They're a bar that me and my wife go to sometimes, but it's right there at Broadway and.
And they're
you know,
selling like
10 pounds of chicken, like 36 corn
Oh,
dogs,
yeah, no.
gallons of milk for $5.
yeah, what I read, the article I read is that you have to actually have like a grocer's permit apparently to do that.
That's funny.
And so they were like,
They're like, I have a liquor
finding-
license. What's the difference?
Yeah, you can sell cups, you can sell shots, but you can't sell chicken.
Which is also funny that they're just selling alcohol to go now.
That is interesting.
I don't know how they're getting away with that.
I
That blows
know.
my mind.
Well, it's
It's
like
like
those,
beer and all, you know.
It's like those drive-through alcohol.
Beer and all.
Is
yeah.
that what it is? Beer
yeah,
and all?
that's the brand name one.
Yeah, which is always crazy. Like, don't drink and drive, and they have a drive-through at the liquor store. It's like,
Yeah, you have to wait till you get home. Here's a straw.
it's a straw.
Yeah,
I
it's,
heard that.
it's
I heard that
ridiculous.
that they put it in like a bag, and they have to like seal it, like a vacuum seal type bag, or
Oh,
like
wow.
a heat sealed. Like
Well,
they put your
it's
drink
never
in,
happened.
seal it. No.
I do drink. I know y'all probably don't partake so much, but they don't do that.
That's interesting because I had heard that that's what they were doing to get around the drive-through, but I guess.
That'd be funny if this actually like got seen by a bunch of people, and then it's like I shut down all the beer halls.
Yeah, I know. You
I'd be
shut
like,
down-
dude, people are listening.
And the restaurant, though, which one?
Still golden.
Still
Right
golden.
off Broadway and Nolan.
They're all shut it down. You're the narc. You have
Stitches don't get stitches anymore. They get masks
any- Yeah, right.
and face covers. I don't know.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
And so, where are you at with all this Corona stuff?
I mean,
As
it's
far as the concept, the whole
I don't know.
philosophy behind this.
I
Are
think
you
it's-
are you a stay-at-homer guy? You think that's
for the most part, I mean, like it's and it's mostly because my wife is concerned, and I have to do what she says.
Oh, of course.
You know, 95% of the time, I won about 1/20th of our battles, and I'm still apologizing for some reason. But yeah, no, and I think there's definitely something to social distancing. I think there's a little. I think masks are starting to play, and I saw this article about masks specifically, and I don't know if Japan just doesn't test their people, but you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
they have a significantly less amount of confirmed
Yes.
coronavirus cases, and everybody wears a mask. If there's a little bit of flu, everybody's wearing a mask.
Yes.
So maybe there's something effective about it, and I think the scare isn't necessarily like. I don't believe in the conspiracies. I think they're fascinating, and
Yes.
I like to believe that the whole United Nations is talking about global currency. Apparently, that kind of scares me.
Yes, I agree.
Like New World Order type of stuff, and I think there's definitely something lingering above all of us that a lot of us don't know about. But I mean, so what? Like I'm gonna control it. Like,
Yeah, right.
Like I'm gonna go into the Illuminati and be like, hey guys, can y'all just like cut it out?
Yeah, can you cut back? Give us all a little break.
Like, no, I don't have any money. Especially after y'all switch it on to global currency.
Right.
I have 3 Bitcoins.
3 coins.
And that's my rent. I don't know. Like, there's nothing I can do to stop it, especially if it's there. And so I'm not too worried about it. I think it's fun to joke about. I'm more concerned about, like, Tiger King memes. You know, that's definitely, like, where my focus is.
Right.
Because I just like to laugh, and I think, like, if I'm going to get the coronavirus and die, then I'm going to get the coronavirus and die. Like, I'll do everything I can to, like, overcome it. But
Right.
there's nothing I can do to stop that.
Well, see, I'm still working. The construction sites are going like full.
Apparently, it's essential
full
to build up infrastructure and install little toilet paper rolls.
I know, in luxury apartments that aren't going to be rented for years.
Years. Right. It's essential.
And you know what's essential is I work in a lot of schools, and they got all the schools going.
Close.
And I'm like, they're not going to open these schools for a
You should
very
be
long time.
converting these to like teaching little biodomes where they
Yes.
like go in and then you get desanitize and
Yeah,
and then you
or
come out and you get
hospitals,
resta-
yeah, but no, they're construction has determined that they're essential, and so it's like I got work from here till
That's great. I might
for
I
crazy.
could use a job.
I know,
Like,
right? Yeah,
I have a little bit of experience.
I've been expecting a lot of people to be calling me before long. 'cause
No, 100%. I can do work if you need help.
that sounds good.
I can twist a little. What is it called? A screwdriver.
Screwdriver.
Yeah.
The work I do is pretty easy. We install toilet paper holders and
I've done it.
paper towel holders, and
I have not. No, I have done that. Yeah, just let me know.
but we have a 100 questionnaire on personality.
I'm screwed.
We got to get the right personality on the toilet papers.
And trust me, mine isn't it. No
Not even
matter
the
what.
toilet papers are going to like you. Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's yeah. I mean, we're so low on toilet paper right now at home that I just shower every time.
That's why. Yeah.
That's the cleaner way.
Yeah, the garden hose.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
we have acreage.
Well, I don't
so
have land. I have
you can-
apartment and
yeah.
neighbors, so I can't go out there and hose myself down. I get a couple of tickets in Alamo Heights.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
This is very free form.
it is very free form. That's exactly right. We just get together and have a little conversation.
Yeah.
The The problem I see with the whole thing is that, I mean, as far as I know, I mean, millions of people are going to die. I mean, I hope not, but it very well could happen. I have no idea, but
Happens all the time.
it happens all the time, and it happens whenever you crash the economy. See, people are acting like it's money or life,
Right.
but the economy is life. I mean, you can go back
Absolutely.
to any time the economy has crashed, and they can tell you how many people died as a result of that.
Right.
So it's not like, it's people are money grubbers or money lovers, and that's why those people are against crashing the economy. It's because that's life too. People die from that. And
Definitely.
right now they were talking 20%, then it went to 30%, now it's up to, they're saying 40% unemployment. I mean, that's apocalyptic. The Great Depression was 24% at its highest,
Whoa.
24%. And so
We have how many more people?
yeah, exactly. More people. You're talking about enormous amounts of unemployment. What that means that's just, to me, it's almost, I can't imagine how that's going to work out. That just seems like
How
we're
it'll work
coming
out
into-
is 60% will thrive and 40% will probably die. Or
The problem is that a great number of the 60% will be out of work because they sell to the 40%.
Oh,
You think, well, Bezos doesn't care. Well, Bezos gets his money by selling to me. If I don't have a job, he's not making money.
it's true.
And so,
I don't know how any of it makes sense. I mean, I don't know.
see, I think that countries like Sweden, Holland, I think they're doing a much better, how would I put this? I think that they got a better idea on how to do it. They're not doing any of this. They're doing what Britain tried to do at the start, which was lock up or quarantine the vulnerable, which is mainly anyone over 60, is really the vulnerable.
Right, or they have asthma or whatever.
Yeah, underlying health conditions, and then the elderly. And they had them quarantined like completely. You couldn't even visit your parents.
And most of them are getting paid Social Security and stuff anyways. or
Right, they got the
retirement at this
national
point.
health, they got their NHS and the National Health Services, and so, that's all baked into the cake over there.
Right.
And then everyone else was told just to go out and go to work, and then I guess Boris Johnson got panicky and changed that. I was really
Who's that?
hoping he would stick to his, Boris Johnson's the prime minister
Of Sweden?
of Britain.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, Britain was doing that, and then
And they had an outbreak, probably.
a little bit, not much.
Yeah.
I mean, he got it.
Oh, well, that's probably it's like everybody locked down.
Everyone locked
Nobody
down.
gets a job. So
If I'm
I'm
gonna die-
cured.
Yeah.
And when I'm cured,
Yeah.
kill them all.
No, but Sweden's still doing it, and they're insisting on them. They're taking a lot of heat from the other European nations.
Yeah.
But they're insisting on not locking down. So it'll be interesting to see how they do.
Am I too loud?
Nope.
Not at all. All right, cool.
But
I
you
just-
can turn down your mic. She can turn down.
Oh
your
no, I'm
headphone,
not. I
but
just
you're
want to make
good.
sure I'm not peeking because I know I get loud.
He's watching it there. See,
Cool.
I got my own little volume control right there.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a lot of range because I'm a rapper. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Oh, that's fun.
I knew you were doing stand up for. Do you still do it?
No. I stopped doing cocaine. I stopped doing
Oh,
stand-up.
okay.
They were simultaneous, apparently.
Oh, okay.
I tried it a couple of times afterwards, but there was
No.
nothing there. Yeah, and there
I was-
wasn't really anything when I was doing it either. To be honest with you, I would go into this ridiculous character when I realized I was bombing, so I was doing it like 90% of the time.
Right.
And just like other comics loved it, but the audience is just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Not that they were paying, but like, why did I come into this open mic for?
Right.
Yeah, it'd scare a lot of people out of the room. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely like, I love performing. Yeah, I was in theater in middle school, and I did a couple of other things where I was performing, and I love it. Like, I love getting away from myself or diving into a weirder part of myself, really.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. Now I went to rehab, and then I never really went back to stand up. Like,
I was always impressed with that you had done that. I'm not a funny person, so I wouldn't do it. I would just inflict that on people. But I really respect people that will get up and do that. 'Cause
it
that's
is. You are naked up there.
Yes.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have a narrative. You don't have a
don't have a band behind you.
Script. You don't have
Yeah.
anything. It's just you and a microphone and
There's a script, sort of,
And-
but
in your head. But
right.
that
And
you
then if
wrote.
you don't get laughs, then that script is messed up. Like,
Yeah, yes.
But yeah, I would definitely do it again, but I wouldn't probably need somebody writing my jokes for me, and
Right.
then really like going into what the stand-up character persona is, because
Mm-hmm.
I understand, because that was the reason I could never get an audience, because I couldn't commit, because I would like do a thing and then I would do like a different thing, so there was like, they didn't know what to laugh at. They didn't know, like, or if I was just a
Right.
crazy person on stage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's like comics who do, you know, like just like real jokey storytelling and charismatic, and I was doing a little bit of that. And then there's some who are like kind of shy and then they're like awkward, and I was doing a little bit of that. So it's just like you don't know what this character is.
Right.
So I'd have to define that and then write jokes for that.
Right.
But I'd definitely do it again if somebody was writing like jokes for me.
Yes. And so you actually would write jokes when you did it, or did you like go up and improvise?
For the most part, I would write what I wanted to talk about,
Mhm.
or like what the jokes were. Absolutely. I used to hang out. He was a really good friend of mine for a couple of years. His name was Jeff Stone, and he was doing stand-up. He wanted to get into it. He was way funnier than me, but we would like talk through jokes with each other.
Right.
Mostly, it would be him having the jokes, and I just like characters and like riffing. So I just have like 3 concepts for a 5-minute set type of thing. So I would talk to him through about that. We'd see what we laugh about, and that's kind of how I made my sets.
Right.
But I never did more than 8 minutes on stage.
Oh, okay.
But I did it like a year and a half.
Yeah, I knew you were doing that. I was always very impressed with that. I do the very, very knockoff cheap version of stand-up, right? I do jokes when I preach. And I actually will write a few.
But you have an audience. Like,
Yeah,
so
but
that's kind of nice.
But they'll go to hell if they don't go.
If they don't laugh.
If they don't laugh, it could be worse.
Did the Bible say there's something worse than hell?
I say that. No,
I haven't heard that amendment.
no, I try to lighten up. You know, when I'm teaching or preaching, I want people to enjoy being there,
Yeah.
right? And
No, you are performing.
And I am exactly right. And just because what I'm saying I think is serious truth doesn't mean it has to be moribund. It
You
doesn't mean it
can't
has
have
to
fun
be.
with it.
It doesn't mean people can't enjoy it. And I think that people remember things better if there's a little laughter involved, if there's some
Yeah, yeah.
humor in it, and especially if you're talking about serious subjects. I mean, to me, all serious subjects, and then you're being dry and serious when you're doing it, and it's just, to me, you just don't get much out of that.
Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age.
Well, see, I have a thing when I teach preaching classes. I have one of my my motto, or I basically like write it on the top of on the board, and it's there all the whole time I teach a preaching class. And it is that it's a greater sin to be boring than to be wrong. Because if you're boring, it doesn't matter if you're right. Nobody's listening.
I feel like I've heard that one. I feel like you told me, like, I've heard that from you before.
I've said it quite a bit. I know a lot of people take issue
Your
with it
MO.
because they think what I'm saying is, truth doesn't matter, which isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you're telling truth
In a boring way.
in a boring way, you might as well not be,
Right.
because nobody's listening. And so it's only for yourself that
Except,
you're saying it.
except for really boring people.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're.
You don't think boring people are listening?
No, nobody's listening.
Because I think boring people are like, when they're entertained, they don't even think about anything.
No, they do. That's one of the amazing things. So I've done a lot of public speaking. I mean, I've been doing this for.
How old are you?
I am 40.
So 30 years maybe.
45.
I don't even do it
I've been
since you were a
doing it since I
teenager.
was 16.
Yeah, 30
So
years.
yeah, they're about 30 years. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of practice on this, and I'm talking about all forms of audiences.
Yeah.
And what I have found is that if you're boring, nobody is listening. Nobody's listening. Nobody hears anything.
You
Even the
were
people
always
that
one of the
say
yellers. Do you feel like?
that. Oh, see, that's why I'm wearing earphones.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'll yell.
Yeah. So.
In fact, I'm going to probably start using like an in-ear thing when I preach to keep me from yelling, because I don't like it.
You don't like that you yell?
I don't like that type of preaching. I really, that surprises you?
I mean, you're evolving.
Huh?
You're evolving as a preacher.
Yes.
No, I think you definitely learned from day one. You were preaching on the streets, right, in Mexico.
Yeah, well, there's
lot
a
of the
difference
time.
between shouting or, speaking to be heard by people far away and
Projecting,
yelling.
yeah.
Projecting, thank you.
And
actually,
yelling.
and yelling.
That's true. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, see, so, but it's hard to know the difference, especially if you don't have any training, which I never did, of course.
That's funny.
And so, you're on the street, you're like, oh, I have to shout. But
Right.
you're not really shouting.
You're yelling
You're
at people.
shrill. You're yelling, exactly.
Yeah, there's
And
this. I used to listen to this band called The Warriors, but all they do is yell, right? So it's like this really like high pitch, and I used to love like singing to them in the car because it's just like this shrill, and it's like I did it once with Ellie, and she was just like, "What did I marry?" Like it was really funny, but yeah, it's definitely like it's also hurts.
Yes.
Projecting doesn't
It hurts
hurt.
no, it doesn't. So yelling hurts your voice. It dulls the listeners.
Yeah.
Because your brain immediately attenuates the whole thing. It's like you turn it off.
An auto tuner on it.
Yes.
Like auto tuner filters on people's ears.
That would be easier than me. I have been working for years to not yell, and it's extraordinarily hard for me.
Yeah, that's
It
funny.
really is hard. I get it. I fall into it, and I don't even realize, because I listen to about the only sermons I listen to are my own,
Right
and
on.
it isn't because I like them.
It's because that's
It's
what I
'cause
do with stand up
I
too,
wanna-
man. Like,
right,
yeah.
I want to improve, but it takes me like sometimes a week or two to work up the courage to listen to it.
Oh, it's
Like,
nice.
I'll have
Sometimes
it.
I'll delete it. Like, because I know it's so bad. I don't want to realize that.
Right. No, I'll listen to them, but it takes me a while to work up the courage, and then I listen. I'm like, oh, I'm still doing it. I'm still, and it's like
Yeah.
we got this little congregation. There's like 40 people.
Oh,
and I'm
y'all
like,
moved to the YMCA, right?
Yeah, we're in the
Katie was
YMCA.
telling me about that they kind of your landlord or whatever.
Well, that worked out great for us.
That's good.
Because think about it. I mean,
Especially with this
we had like
situation.
$5,000 a month in rent and utilities
Ugh.
and everything. Where would we be right now?
Y'all
Where we
be
can't
screwed.
meet there. We wouldn't be able to meet there, and we'd be
Your
paying
landlord's
them.
probably like, oh man, I really messed up.
He did mess up. Right now, he's
Oh, we gotta
thinking,
rent this suit. Hey guys, y'all want to come back? Like,
hey, anyone run a brick building you can't use? Yeah, no, it worked out great for us. 'Cause
Yeah.
now we
Y'all
don't. We
streaming
only
at home?
pay. Right, we're streaming. We only pay at Y when we're there.
Oh, okay.
So we're not paying anything right now.
Like you have to pick a slot, kind of thing.
No, they gave us. We get the slot. It's like ours,
done
but
and
we
deal.
only pay for the times we use it.
rather than having a whole.
Yeah,
Man, that was a nice
it,
setup you
it
had.
worked out. It worked out real well as far as that. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't happy about the Y. I liked where we were,
Yeah.
but
No, you had a beautiful place.
yeah. But as soon as this happened, I'm like, oh, yes, thank you, Lord. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because, we would have been we would have had to default on our contract. There's no way we could have paid that kind of money and not be using it. Not
Yeah,
been
yeah.
a mess. So I'm very happy now about that. Even though I still am not crazy about the Y, it's just a little, it's weird. You're out there on a
In a
basketball
gym, right?
court. Yeah, you're on the gym. It's a little odd.
Do you ever do like
bit.
basketball references and like hold the ball and like dribble and be like, and then you'll make that hoop. And then you shoot it and you miss and you're like, but if I made it,
Yeah, if I made it, I would have made
that
it.
would have been the analogy.
No, but what I do got to do is I got to police everyone from not playing basketball during the sermon. It's like, hey, no,
like
no
kids
basketball
there,
yet.
or-
Not kids.
He's pointing at me, and it's not even true.
I
I
gotta
mean,
be
I'm
like,
sure you're operating something.
I gotta
for
be
the
like,
live
it's
stream.
church time. Stop playing basketball.
Oh, right. Is there anybody else in there while y'all are there? As a
No,
congregation?
no.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, they don't open on Sunday because they're a Christian organization. It's
Oh,
Young
yeah.
Men's Christian Association. So,
I played 14 seasons of basketball with the Y.
oh, cool. Yeah. So they don't open on Sundays, and then that's why they can rent it to churches.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
there is another church that uses it after us.
Gotcha.
They get there in the afternoon, like a Spanish-speaking church.
Cool.
So that works out.
Yeah, it's cool. You have to adapt, and
Yeah.
it seems like you were fortunate to.
Yeah,
adapt.
we were. I mean, and we get use of all the facilities. Can't be in any of the exercise equipment places, but all the
Right.
facilities, and they have all the chairs. They loan us, so we don't have to have any chairs. I mean, they make the coffee for us for people that
That's
like
nice.
coffee. Yeah, so it's all. I hate coffee, so to me, it's like. See, to me, I think coffee's like this big scam. I just can't stand it. It is. It's a scam. It's like.
Yeah.
It's like everyone can excuse the worst possible behavior because they're a coffee drinker.
What do you mean?
Well, yeah,
No, I
it's
mean,
like-
I see that with alcohol. Like,
No,
I was drunk. I'm
It's
sorry,
worse than
but-
alcohol. It's like you can be so rude and horrible, and then all you got to do is say, "I haven't had my coffee." Oh, you know it. You're in on it.
I don't do that. I don't ever blame the coffee. I never blame the coffee.
Maybe if you learn to blame the coffee, Starbucks would hire you.
I blame other things.
You just got to learn to answer that questionnaire right, Scott. You got to put on there. I
Like,
didn't
how do
have
you
my
feel in the morning
coffee.
before coffee?
Just put on the top of the questionnaire. I haven't had my coffee yet.
And then they'll be like, "Oh, he's everything that's not this."
Yeah, then they'll be like, oh, you just got to overlook everything. It is. It's a huge scam. And then you go in a
Yeah.
place and they'll be like, free coffee, and then you have to, nothing else. It's like, what if I don't drink coffee? They're like, well, then you don't get nothing. You can drink from the water fountain. I went to a hotel. I was working, I think it was Lubbock. It was Lubbock, I think. And we were staying at this hotel.
Because
Normal
coffee's
li-
so, I hate to say it, but coffee's so cheap.
It's so cheap.
It is cheap unless you're getting like the type of beans that Press Coffee gets, where you're literally paying to pay the farmers correctly. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like we're paying to make sure they have like health and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
Down in Costa Rica or wherever we get them from. Ultimately, we're not the roasters, but we only use roasters.
Right.
So that's why it's so expensive now. But if not, like they're just making you Folgers and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's dirty
like
water.
child labor over there.
Exactly. No, I was in this hotel in Lubbock, and we were working there, and it's just a normal hotel. But for some reason, this hotel every Wednesday would have a free meal, like steaks or meatloaf or whatever every Wednesday. And we were there working for weeks, and so my guys loved it because they got a free meal on Wednesday. And then it was like all the beer you can drink, free. And I'm like, I don't drink beer. And they're like, well, that's all we have. I'm like, you don't have like tea or soda? And they had sodas in the fridge. No, you have to buy those. But you can have beer. I'm like, I don't drink beer. And they're like, well, there's the water fountain. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. I can drink beer,
I'll
but no.
go back into being an alcoholic.
Yeah. I thought that was the craziest thing. But it's kind of like when I go to these construction suppliers. They'll have coffee there, but nothing else. So, and I just can't stand it. I've tried to like it.
Have you like milk it down and like sugar it up?
There is no amount of milk in the world that can make that.
I feel like I make, like some people are like, oh, I want extra mocha and some vanilla. And no, just a single shot when I do those iced lattes. And they taste like chocolate milk.
They don't to me. They taste like coffee.
I don't understand that. Like, I don't taste the coffee till it's like half full of espresso or it's black. Like,
right.
Yeah, I taste the milk and the chocolate. I taste everything around the coffee unless it's a lot of coffee. Like, I love it though.
I've tried for so long.
Have you ever drinking alcohol?
No.
No. So, I mean, like, if you drink alcohol.
No, I like food cooked with it.
Yeah,
so I like cooking. I love cooking with
yeah.
alcohol. But no, I've never like
beer and wine.
And I've taken medicines that have alcoholic content. So I know what it tastes like.
Like a lot of people who don't like coffee are the people who like drink vodka instead of whiskey. Like if you actually like coffee, but it's the same thing. Like when I taste whiskey, I enjoy it. I enjoy the like bitterness, the roughness of it. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with coffee. I like what's bitter and rough about it.
Well, see, I like tea, but I don't like it sweet.
So you like
because I like the bitter. I like the
Well, then you're a tea guy.
I'm a tea guy.
We have teas at Press Coffee.
There you go.
I'll have loose leaf teas.
There you go. I like loose leaf.
And through a strainer. Mm-hmm. Like we don't have bags or anything. Mm-hmm. So we take tea seriously pretty too. Yeah, not chai tea.
I love tea. I drink probably 2-3 gallons a day of
gallons.
Iced tea. Yeah.
Okay, that's worse than what I drink with coffee.
Yeah, I drink a lot of tea. A lot of iced tea, yeah.
Is that iced tea?
Yeah, that's iced tea. When I used to program, I would drink more.
Because you stay up?
I'm just sitting there all day programming, and that's all I do is drink tea.
And it's just iced black tea?
Iced black tea, no sugar in it, unsweet.
That's fine. Well, that's good.
Yeah. See, I don't like sweetened drinks, so.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't drink soda, I don't drink anything sweetened. And I don't like water too much, so then I'm kind of stuck with tea.
I'm drinking water, but I never drink water. I hate it.
I don't ever drink water. I take tea to work. I drink tea all the time.
I don't feel like tea dehydrates you like coffee does, for sure. Like it definitely doesn't dehydrate you as bad.
Not as bad, no.
Have you ever had like a good hot tea with like cream and sugar though?
I take it with cream. I would not sugar, but I used to buy all kinds of teas from like English teas. And
you don't like honey or all that weird sugar?
I just don't like sweet drinks.
Do you like sweet food?
Not really. I'm not a dessert person. Yeah. I like savory.
Same.
So I like steaks. I mean, that's my thing, steak.
Like when you go for a snack, you're not going for a Twix bar, you're going for a beef jerky.
Beef jerky, yeah. Although at work I'll eat I take little tiny candy bars, and that's what I'll eat a couple of those at work after.
Just a juice? Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, like I eat a sandwich and a couple of those little miniature candy bars, and then I always regret it.
I didn't know I would get this information on this conversation.
Yeah, I'm very open. I'm a very open person.
So what'd you learn about Mike? He takes like little candy bars whenever he's working. That's all I remember.
And obscene amounts of tea. I eat the tea. Yeah. He's a hoarder. I really am. I got cabinets full of tea bags.
So like you're at H-E-B and you're like, with the tea shelves.
Yeah, as soon as this
everybody's looking at you like, with their like 8 things of rolls of toilet paper.
I'm like, no toilet paper, Terry. Get all the tea. Buy all the tea.
I'm talking like 5 H-E-Bs.
I can drag my butt in the grass, but I need the tea.
It's good for you.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on and talk to you is because I'm very curious about your path, because we both of us started off in kind of the same
Church.
Same church, same
Yeah.
environment. I mean, I'm old friends with your
He
whole
said he didn't
family.
want to bait me, but
Not bait you, just
I see that
draw
lure,
you.
buddy. No, I expected to talk about this. I'm pretty open about everything now, how I feel, and
Good,
I'm comfortable with it. So
excellent. I just want to, because I have some questions. I'm curious, have some curiosities.
sure.
So where would you say, I don't want to misrepresent you where you are now. So where would you say is your position right now as far as when it comes to faith, God, religion?
Agnostic.
Okay. And what do you mean by agnostic? Because
I mean, I don't think there's a way to prove or disprove that God exists.
okay, very good.
I feel like there might be a higher power, but there's no way for me to know until I die.
Okay,
And I feel like and I'm definitely not a good person by any means. I have a lot of terrible qualities. I have, like periods that I regret things that I say that I don't mean to offend, and I do
Correct.
offend, and it's something I shouldn't have said, and I have to learn and build my character from that. But I think all in all, like, I feel like I'm a decent human being. Like,
Okay.
And I used to not be, for sure, like, until I came to this, and rehab is really what made me kind of at least reach out and be like, okay, I actually like need to stop like screwing people over, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I definitely from when I was about 19 till I was about 23, whenever I went to rehab, I was on a path of destruction for sure, and it took me a long time to get out of that. But so I think there could be a higher power or a God.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 5, I accepted the Lord as as I understood it to be, as like I was gonna die and I wanted a place to go, that wasn't hell. And I don't know. I feel like I always talk about how I got saved and then how it blankets me, right? like I'm good, like, so it doesn't
Right.
matter. And now I feel like ultimately in my growing of age wisdom it's not up to me, so it doesn't matter. Like I can't change what I do at this point because I'm trying to live for my wife, and like for what my family is becoming, and be a decent person and provide as a person. And then one day I'm going to die and I don't know what happens. And sometimes I have a very empty feeling about that. I don't have any, blanket or a net.
Right.
I don't feel like I have anything.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like day to day, it may hit my brain once a week, that like feeling of, like nothingness, like I'm going to die and there's going to be nothing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I feel like I'm comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's where I'm at.
And how do you see your path from where you say you got saved at 5, or you trusted in the Lord at 5,
Right.
and then to where you are now? What is that path that went there? Because like I look at my life and I'm basically the same. I mean, I got saved at I think I was 6, and of course my life went in a very different direction as far as religion is. I'm just talking about my belief system.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about what you and I have done, but just our belief systems have gone in very different directions. So
Yeah.
what do you think how do you trace your path to where you are now?
You're talking about like moments where I've
Well, yeah,
altered?
I mean, when you where you come from a church where we both came from, which
Right.
was, we're not talking about just like Christian church. This was like
Non-denominational.
fundamentalist,
Right.
like believe and faith, and this is like really pushed real hard.
Yeah.
And then to what is it that made you think maybe this isn't true?
I mean, definitely I read Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion.
Okay.
And I was turned on to that. I don't know if I should say his name, but I know I listen.
Yeah, both
my-
listeners will be upset.
My history teacher in high school, Mr. Haverda, who I like made some short films with, he was my favorite, like most inspirational teacher. He turned me on to Richard Dawkins,
Uh-huh.
and it's funny because he's involved in a Catholic church, and like, you know what I mean. But it's for his kid's sake, and his wife wants it.
Right.
And so I see and that happened after I left, but ultimately like he had these thoughts, and he just started. He's made sense to me, like what I was learning at Oak Knoll was not. It never really made sense to me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And in retrospect now, like thinking about all the things he said, they could have also been contradictions. That's why I don't believe in anything now.
Yes.
Like, that's why I've turned into not a like full-blown atheist.
Okay.
But definitely like reading Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion is what made me, like is God an answer, or is it just another question?
Right.
And I went with it's another question, side of it. So I feel like he disproved it. And he always said he's like the most leaning toward agnostic Richard Dawkins. He's not like, I'm an atheist, but I'm
Right.
like the most leaning toward agnostic, so I may as well call myself an atheist.
Right.
So that made sense to me, and I don't know why it made sense to me, but and maybe it's just logic or my stupid human brain, you know.
No, I understand.
But that's really where I like turned, and because of that, I think I went down some pretty dark paths, like in drugs and stuff like that. But ultimately, you know, like coming out of rehab, and like when I was in rehab, that was like the first time I was sober in 4 or 5 years, like for more than a day.
Wow.
Yeah, like completely sober. There were days where I was like, take it easy.
I got you.
But yeah. So
But like sober out of decision.
I mean, I was forced to you're forced to in rehab, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there. You can't because they test you every day, pretty much. So yeah, like maybe 3 weeks into it, I really broke down, and I didn't really pray per se, but I definitely was like, you know, like I need to change my mentality and my direction in life, or like this is gonna end up in a place where I don't want to be. I never really like expected to get married or whatever, but I definitely like wanted something a little more substantial.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't have anything substantial. Everything was like on the surface, you know, like you walked into my room, and I remember Terry's dad visiting me at that apartment. It was my first apartment, and that place was like it was like a pathway to go to my computer, and then it's just junk and stuff I haven't even unpacked that I'll never unpack, and then a place to go to my nightstand, and then a place to go to my bathroom. Like it was a studio, and there was like junk paths.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Ellie always calls me a hoarder, but I was just like, no, they were important things. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the definition of a
Yeah,
hoarder.
exactly, right. I've come a long way, for sure, but I still have my little closet of stuff that I'll probably never open. But it's just one closet. So.
She's got it corralled down.
Oh
to
man,
one
it took a
small
long
space.
time. It
Good for
wasn't
her.
Yeah. I'm thankful for it. There's a lot of clarity from it.
Of course.
I throw away a lot of like my stupid like rap lyrics. I was holding like all those in a box, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying here. You know,
Right.
where was I going with that? It doesn't even rhyme. Like it's just it's a thought that's like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping it.
No, I know. I got sermons that look just like that.
And you just yell, and then everybody listens to you, and then
and they yell back, and it's it's terrible. Believe me, it's like that needs to die.
Yeah, I ended up throwing pretty much all of my lyrics away except for one notebook, which is pretty recent. Those are the only ones which I'm like, okay, this is actually a direction that I'm going. I don't need to worry about anything in the past because I'm never going to be there again. So why would it matter if I didn't write anything that I wanted to record? So, because otherwise I would have recorded it. I would have like made notes and like recorded and backed it up. I know how to do data. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely that was the turning point where I switched from being this like I don't believe in a God at all to like maybe there's one, you know, and maybe I have been wrong, but I don't think I can prove either way.
Right. Have you engaged any on the arguments of natural theology? Do you know what natural theology is?
I mean,
The reason I asked
natural
is
theology basically believes like the Earth is older than 6,000 years.
No.
Not even.
Oh well, natural theology doesn't care about that. So natural theology is to argue or to examine the question from a purely natural perspective, not a biblical perspective. So is there a God? This isn't about whether the Bible says there's a God. It's about whether or not you can, through intuition or through logic or through empirical evidence or whatever, through natural means, can you make an argument for or against God? That's natural theology.
I haven't engaged in any of those.
That's what I ask, because that's kind of what I've been interested in lately, because I mean, I think that and I don't mean just one particular church. I'm not trying to down on any particular church, but I think that fundamentalism as a whole lately, or I say in the last 200 years, 100 years maybe, has really fallen down on the job, in that the only answer that they seem to be able to provide anybody is
It's in the Bible.
is a verse.
Right.
Like, here's a verse. And I'm a preacher. I believe the Bible. I believe the Bible's true. And so I'm not trying to, I don't want to sound like I'm saying the
Bible's not true.
The Bible's not true. It's not what I'm saying.
You're not saying that.
Not saying that. I'm also, but I am saying, and and I know some people get offended at me from this, people, believers.
At least they're listening.
Yeah, they're listening, believe me. People do listen now. What I do say is that the Bible is not all the truth. So it's all true.
Right.
It's not.
But it's not the entirety
Right.
of
So
what truth
if
is.
you read I've read the Bible complete many times.
I've read it. I don't remember a lot of it.
Right.
But I've read it I read the New Testament maybe 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And the Old Testament twice.
In the New Testament, it never tells you that 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
So, people that get upset at me, they're not thinking clearly, because there's a lot of things that we know to be true that aren't in the Bible,
Right.
right? It doesn't, now, I believe that they don't contradict the Bible either. The Bible never says 2 + 2 = 5, right? It
Right.
just doesn't comment on mathematics. It's not a mathematical textbook. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It also doesn't comment on science. I know some people want to make it comment on science, but it doesn't. It's a theological book.
Yeah, kind of like when it talks about the 4 corners of the earth, and
Right.
it's not trying to be scientific.
It's not a scientific treatise. And to take that and say, well, there's a scientific error in the Bible, that would be like saying there's a scientific error in a love song.
It's like when you're talking about 4 corners of the earth, it's not saying there's actually 4 literal
No.
corners of the earth, because it's talking about concept. It's talking about
It's not scientific.
a picture. Like,
The example I give is that it's like a love song. So a love song talks about, you broke my heart. Now,
And
you could say, well,
literally-
that's not scientifically accurate.
It's true.
But it's not a scientific song. It's a love song.
it's not a scientific statement.
That's right. Exactly right. It doesn't mean it's an untrue statement.
You
It's a
can't-
perfectly true
You
statement.
can't really break a heart unless you, like, freeze it, right?
I would think so. And I don't know that would actually cause what he thinks is causing. Exactly. So anyways, going back to what I'm saying, I think
Right.
that fundamentalism has really fallen down and not engaging on all the fronts, right? And so like that, I mean, there's very few Christians that engage in natural theology at all. We're saying, is there an argument to be made for God that isn't out of the Bible?
Like, completely out of the Bible.
Not a mention of the Bible. But the problem that fundamentalists have with that is that to do that, you're no longer talking about a personal God, which the Bible is mainly dealing with. The Bible isn't really dealing with a higher power. It is dealing with, is that higher power a personal entity
Right.
that has a name, a character, whatever? That's a very different argument from what natural theology would make. Natural theology would say, in fact, natural theologians fall in with Muslims and Catholics, and they're
All of it.
yeah, because in so much as they're all arguing for the existence of the maximally great being, is what they would call it.
Right.
Which we would shorten to as God. That's what they mean by God. By God, a natural theologian means a maximally great being, someone who is great, a being that is great in every imaginable way,
And created this
to the
thing.
infinite power. Well, that could be argued,
That
but
could be
it's whether that being exists.
That's interesting.
And so natural theology engages on that level.
Front, right.
Yes. And there are some, now there are.
I mean, I
there
would
are
probably
some
agree
good
with almost
Christians.
all of that. Like, like, that is there a way to prove it? But is there a way to prove it?
Well, that's what it is. But see, they're trying to, this is now a matter of, with them, this is now a matter of evidence and like logical, and by logic, I don't mean like talking logically. I mean actual like formal logic and formulas, and say, is there, for instance, they would use an argument they call the cosmological argument, which
Okay.
is everything that comes into existence has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, is how they would phrase it. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. So that's a logical argument
Okay.
that is saying that we can empirically look at things, and basically most scientists now agree that everything that begins to exist has
It's
a
a
cause.
cause.
Has a cause. Now
That's
there is
so,
some.
That's so funny to think about, because to me it's just like, it's also extrapolating on what should already be understood.
But
You
there
know
are
what I
some,
mean?
but it wasn't understood for a long time.
That's funny.
Because they believe that, for instance, the universe, there's two problems. And that that's called the cosmological argument. And the last two are basically, you have to accept if you accept the first one, right?
Right.
Once you accept the first one, the last two are just like, they're just like explaining, then that means this.
So if I don't believe everything has a cause.
Right. If you don't believe that things that begin to exist must have a cause, or that the universe didn't begin to exist.
So, and they're also not saying like what that cause is.
No.
Ever.
No, that's natural
Whether
theology.
good or bad.
Well, the cause would be the maximally great being.
I see.
You see, that's implied in all of these. if it has a cause, then it is some form. Now they would say, to argue then that that's a personal God, that's a separate argument.
Right.
What that cause is intrinsically, well, that's a separate issue. And it may be a theological one. It may not be a scientific or a logical one.
Okay. I think I'm with you.
Yeah. So, but what I was saying is that, there is debate, and for a long time, people didn't believe the universe began to exist. It's, steady state theory, and that was the predominant science for a long, long time.
Talking about the universe always existed.
It just always existed. But, basically, Stephen Hawking and others have basically proven that that's impossible. That it's obvious that it began to exist. It
and there's
seems like
probably multiple universes.
it could be, but
Right.
they would all have begun to exist. And that's the thing about when they
Right,
talk
right.
about God as a maximally great being. That's like the ontological argument. So, like Anselm, a real old priest a long time ago, put out an argument that basically said, if it's possible that God exists, then God does exist, was his argument. And the reason why is this. So when you talk about possibilities in logical terms, you're talking about what a lot of times are called possible worlds. So possible worlds are worlds we could imagine to be, not necessarily that exist. And world, we don't mean planet, we mean creation or the universe.
Right.
So we could imagine a universe where our solar system's in a different galaxy. There's no reason why you couldn't imagine that. That could happen. That could be
Right.
a possible world. Now, you couldn't have a possible world where all the circles were square. That wouldn't be a possible world.
Because that's a math.
It's
thing.
right. That's an incoherence.
And that's an understanding of what a circle is at its
Mathematically.
primal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. As all its points are of equal distance from its center.
So if they were to call it a square, would just be like, oh, well, I guess that's what you call a circle.
Right, but an
Right.
actual,
What a circle
not
is.
terminology, yes.
Right.
A circle could not be square in what it is.
Right.
That
And what
would
we
not-
understand square to be.
Right, that would not be a possible world. So if you can imagine a world in which God is possible, well, if he's a maximally great being, the argument is, then he must exist in all worlds. Because he wouldn't be maximally great if he only exists in one possible.
world.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the ontological argument that like Anselm makes, and that, and so anyways, those are all, there's a whole lot more. There's tons of these. Most Christians that I'm talked to are completely unfamiliar with even concepts, and because it goes back to, they think that the only answer that can be given is a biblical answer. Now, not all of them do. I'm not
Right.
trying to paint with a broad brush, but it's common amongst fundamentalists that do that. Anyways, I guess kind of got off on that. But
Where do you want to go from here?
yeah, it's a good question. No, I'm just curious with you. I was curious if you had ever engaged on any level with like that kind of thinking.
Not specifically, honestly, after I just don't.
Because it seems to me like what has taken you from, let's say, atheism, professed atheism, to agnosticism is a form of natural theology.
Sure.
Without not a formal stating of it, but it seems to me that you've basically come to say it's harder to prove that God doesn't exist than I originally thought.
I realize that all the arguments there's holes. There's holes, and yes, they're absolutions, and yes, they're closed statements, but ultimately, like, it doesn't ask all the questions.
Right.
So, and it never can. That's what I understood, is like they're narrowing my perception because I read the God Delusion again, and I read the Bible again after I got out of rehab, and I'm just like, okay, like I definitely still don't believe that there is this God, right?
Right.
This God that exists only. But this thing over here, it's also like making my perspective in a line of thought.
Yes.
So it's not letting me ask these questions. It's not letting me poke holes, because it's just writing. Like I can't argue with it,
Yeah.
And because I felt like I could argue with it, and I felt like I could argue with it, I'm right in the middle. Like there.
Right.
And I feel like that's what agnosticism is. It's right in the middle of believing and not believing completely.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And so that's just what I identify myself. I wouldn't, if I could, I wouldn't identify as anything. Like I wouldn't
Right.
identify as white. I wouldn't identify as American. I would just identify as, I guess, Scott Newman.
Right.
But I mean, we're putting these stigmas where we're like, like, what are you? What's your faith? And
right, and it's because we have to engage in a structure. I mean,
of conversation.
Right,
Otherwise, we just wouldn't say anything.
Right, and of everything, of work, and I'm not saying you have to have religion to work. I'm just saying we're in all these structures, and all these structures, in order to work as hierarchies, they have to have some type of way of organizing who's in them.
Right.
And that's why people like me. If I could, I would live like on a mountain where there was nobody, and I never saw anybody ever again, personally, which is a weird trait for a pastor, right? It is, but.
Unusual.
And in that type of a world, I would not identify as anything but like you're saying. But
Right.
when I'm dealing with
But
people,
we're in this world.
But exactly, I go to work, I work in construction, then I have to
Engage.
and that means I have to be able to. They want to know who I am. I mean, it's not just
Right.
like, are you white? The person. It's the structure itself, the hierarchy itself, must put you in there.
Right.
You have to fit in order to make the connections that need to be made.
Right.
You have to fit into all different kinds of structures. Are you a man or are you a woman? I mean, which porta-john are you going to use? That's just a simple example, but you have to connect into all those things.
Or now, what do you identify as?
Yeah.
Also a thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so what is it, let me ask you this, 'cause I was so curious when you just said this, because it's fascinating to me when you said that. So what is it about, you say when you read the Bible, you say, I don't think that there's a God like this. What would be, give me like a quick version of what you think is the problem there.
I just feel like, I guess it's because I was always taught that.
Before you do, real quick. So you're not going to offend me at all, because even though I believe the Bible,
Yeah. You don't believe it's the entire truth.
I'd be right. And
Although he does believe
And I
it's
have
entirely true.
entirely true, but not the entire
Not the
truth.
entire truth.
Correct. And I also think that the Bible is incredibly misinterpreted by most Christians.
Sure.
And that you would probably find me closer to your position on the Bible than they would. So anyways.
It sounds like it. Yeah, for the most part, I feel like I was taught, for the most part, to take the Bible literally. And I guess there's like these parables and stuff like that. And yeah, is it real or not? And where's the line?
Mm-hmm.
And so am I supposed to believe this parable as a real thing that happened? Am I supposed to believe that Jesus was born of a virgin? Like, am I supposed to, or is it supposed to just be the story that's supposed to help you with faith and life?
I do.
So what is it? And because of that, because I was taught so far that yes, Jesus was a person that was born of a virgin and arose 3 days after dying, after being buried.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that unless there was some sort of conspiracy around it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do I believe yes, Mary and Joseph could have been no, I never had sex with her, but he did, or she slept around with somebody else to actually have that baby? I think that's a possibility, but everybody's denying everything and there's no plausible evidence.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think it's possible. You know what I mean? And there's nothing that can be said to change my mind about that.
Right.
But if it's treated as just a story, I absolutely believe in the goodness of it. I believe in what it's trying to teach you as far as faith and believing to give your sin. You know what I mean? Because you have to. I realize that in rehab that I have to let go, and I still have nightmares about some of the stuff that happened. But I have to let all that go in my day to day in order to progress in my life.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll spiral. You know what I mean? So I have to let everything go and give it to the future and give it to faith in a sense. So I understand some of the good, and I rationalized a lot of it, I guess. But ultimately, the fact that I can't distinguish whether it's an actual thing or it's just a story that's supposed to teach me something makes me not buy it. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So where I come to on it is that, to me, it all comes down to whether or not the resurrection happened. Because if the resurrection happened, then the rest of it for me is something that's not difficult to accept.
Okay.
Because if someone who's dead 3 days actually raises from the dead, then they can be born of a virgin too. And that's why Paul, I think, says that. Paul's argument is, if Christ didn't raise from the dead, then everything we believe is false, which most Christians won't tolerate the concept of that.
Right.
Because I've asked, it was interesting because I was listening to a debate a while back on the resurrection between a Christian apologist and an atheist.
What's a Christian apologist?
And a Christian apologist is someone who argues for Christianity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You think it's someone who...
They're just apologizing about Christianity?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry they
I'm
did
real
this.
sorry.
But that's what happened. But I'm sorry.
I'm real sorry, yeah.
Sounds like Canadians.
Yeah, very, very polite
The
Christians.
stereotypical Canadian, not every Canadian. Okay.
Yeah. I get it. No, an apologist, it's an unfortunate term nowadays because of that. But traditionally or historically, an apology is to make an argument for, is what that means. And so that's the word now, the title the title is stuck now, the label as an apologist.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it really means someone who's making an answer or making an argument for the
Christian.
And
Okay.
the argument has changed also, right?
Okay.
So now argument means to like argue, whereas
Right.
argument means to make a case for.
It's a Christian debater.
Not
Sort of.
Sort of. Yeah, kind of. But in a formal sense of a
okay.
debate, not
Right.
like an argument or like dispute.
It's a debate at the...
Everyone's crazy how all these terms have completely changed, right?
English isn't real.
I know, it's crazy.
Just like money and Corona. It's all just words and life and death. Okay,
Anyway,
sorry.
so there you got this
Christian
debate,
apologist,
a Christian apologist and an atheist, and they're discussing the issue of the resurrection. And so the Christian apologist asked the atheist what evidence he would accept to believe the resurrection. Like, if you tell me what evidence you would accept to believe the resurrection. And his evidence, what he said, which to me cost him the debate in my view, even though I think most of the times that Christians lose these debates,
Right.
so it's not like, I think I'm pretty fair-minded on it. But to me, it cost him the debate, because his answer was this. He said, if Christ would have risen from the dead and appeared to every single human being on earth, including the unknown world at the time, maybe I would accept that. I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, that would be like a Christian saying the same type of argument for evolution or any other thing that Christians have issues with. It's like,
Right.
there's putting a standard, and then even then you can't commit to it.
Right.
Even then you won't say, if he did that, I would definitely agree. Except he's even then couching. To me, it's like, how scared are you that this might actually happen?
Right.
If you're hedging your bets on that, right? That's already an enormous standard that nobody would ever put on any other type of a
Expect,
thing,
yeah.
right? And even then, you can't commit to that. So it's like, you're not really open. This isn't really a debate. There's a real debate, to my opinion, is where both sides are open to being wrong.
Right.
But if you put that kind of a standard, and even then, a standard of your own making, you can't commit to. It's like you're not at all. And to me, it's like you're much more afraid of being actually being wrong
Right.
than you pretend to be. But anyways, that got me thinking. I thought it cost him the debate, but whatever. But it did get me thinking. And I've asked some Christians in Spanish, and I've done it in our church. It's like asking Christians, what evidence would you accept to say to agree or to admit that Christianity is wrong? And it's surprising that very few have an answer for that.
Right.
I mean, they don't even want to think. They get very mad. Many of them get very, very upset that I would even ask the question. It's like, no, we can't even tolerate that.
And what's funny
concept.
is that Paul himself actually answers his own question. He answers that question
Oh, yeah.
for himself.
He proposes that. Yeah, this is actually a Pauline.
Yeah.
Paul actually makes that case.
That's funny.
Yeah, Paul actually says, hey, if this isn't true, then everything we've believed is wrong. Right? It's in there. It says, if Christ didn't raise from the dead, then our entire faith system
I remember my brother would
vain.
love talking with me because I would pose those questions to him and he'd have to answer them because I was, me going through all my wave and talking with Adam about that was just like, he was like, you strengthen my faith because I had to answer all those questions for myself.
That's exactly right.
And I was just like, cool. Like, I'm glad I can help out and we can have a discussion and I can have my ideas. And
how did you get along with your brother with all this? I mean, talking.
God, never
Well,
bitter.
your brother's a cool guy.
Well, that's probably a big part of it. He's a better person than me. That's for sure.
I don't know about that. I'm just saying.
I do know that.
To me, he's an amazing person. I really have tremendous respect for your whole family. But your brother as a Christian, I think I think he's a very good Christian.
And I almost I wonder if he wasn't so ambitious about it, if I would have turned out a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we went on to two different sides of the spectrum. Him going down this path of, you know what I mean? Like going kind of the exact straight and narrow, but, still willing to accept ideas but be respectful and loving
Mm-hmm.
in that environment. He's always been that way. My parents too, honestly. Like, I mean, my dad and mom a little bit more fighty, you know, but
Feisty.
well, I mean, they don't want to see their son go to hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
of course. I do understand.
so but I never like treated them with disrespect, and they never treated me with disrespect. You know,
Mhm.
that's how I feel with every discussion. If it got too heated, I was like, let's just like drop it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But with my brother, it was definitely like always loving. You know, him like wanting to know, and like he would be like, you have to do this, and he's definitely calmed down a little bit over the years and listened more. But even when he was talking with me, he would listen, and I don't know, like I don't know where I was going with that, but definitely like never any hostility.
Right.
I never felt that, and I think that's just, and I don't have that either. You know what I mean? I'm not like mad that you believe something different than me. You know,
Right.
it's fine.
Well, see, that's one of the things I would like to see. I think Christians need to work more, and I think that Christianity has become very insular and locked into its views, and in many ways unaccepting of dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to the whole concept of tolerance as it's prescribed or as it's taught about today. Like, you know, we have to accept everything that's different, in the sense, by say accept, I mean it's like it's good. I can look at a culture, like I'm very multicultural because I grew up in a different country and
Right.
have done, and I look at cultures that I say are bad. They're not good. They're not good cultures. But it doesn't mean that I need to treat anybody in there poorly.
Bad, yeah.
Badly, that's right. And so I think Christians have a problem differentiating between not embracing
People who identify as Christians.
not embracing the ideologies. We can stand
Right.
firm and say, no, we don't agree with that. But we can do it in a way in which there can be dialogue on it.
Right.
Right?
Should be.
There should be, I think. Now, I really don't like the modern way, which is basically means I have to say, oh, everything you say is very good, and we should suck everything into the
No, that's not fun.
a single face.
That's really
No.
boring, actually.
Yeah, and that turns into nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nonsense.
It's funny. I'll definitely pick fights on the internet, and I do it for that sole purpose of like, everybody who's agreeing with you is making this entire thread really freaking boring. Like, oh yes, yes, yes. Oh, tag this guy. I want you to see this. Oh, everybody agrees. Just delete your Facebook, dude. Delete your Reddit. You are so boring. You don't have anything counter to say or to add on. Then
Well, see, that's
why
one
are
of the-
you even
yeah.
saying anything?
See, I think that a lot of Christian churches are basically in that position. They
Yeah.
will not listen to anybody. And look, I understand. I'm not gonna, as a pastor of a church, I'm not gonna have an atheist come and give a sermon in the church in the service.
Fair.
I would more than happily set up a separate thing outside of the normal Christian service in
Right.
which he could say, give us your
This is a format.
give us your argument. We want to hear it, right? And I encourage people in our church to read Dawkins and Sam Harris and all these other books because the information's there. To pretend the information or that viewpoint isn't in the world and tell people to run from it,
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, but it's not right.
no. And it's not healthy either.
Right.
It's not, even
Bliss
if it's something
isn't
that's
healthy.
wrong.
Like
No,
being blissful is not healthy,
no.
despite what people say.
Yeah,
It's like popping pills your whole life.
that's right.
I feel bliss. I feel great.
That's true.
Yes, you're destroying your kidneys. You know that, right?
So, but even if we took that off the table, I mean, I find that most Christian churches that I'm associated with, they don't want to hear any dissenting views on anything. The most minor type of ideology they might have or idea they have on doctrine, they don't want to hear. They want, I mean, it's real hard. When I want to just talk about churches I've been actually like a pastor in, and I want to say, hey, let's invite so-and-so to come preach. And it's like, he's a Christian. He subscribes to the fundamental beliefs of Jesus as God and he rose from the dead. And, there's like 5 or 6 fundamental beliefs of Christianity,
Right.
fundamentals of Christianity. But he doesn't preach out of the Bible we prefer, or, it's not the King James Version or whatever. There's
Right.
something. And it's like, no, he can't be invited here because if you're reading from the New American Standard, I'm like,
Ask him what he's going to talk about. Like,
well, what are we talking about? What is he going to read? I mean, what are we worried he's going to read out of that Bible? I've read that Bible. If he read every verse in it, I would be okay with that.
it's similar.
It's the same thing.
I mean, it's cite a few words. Right.
But they're the same. I've done extensive studies on this. I'm actually a King James guy, right? So it's not like I'm like, hey, anybody, whatever. I'm just saying they're the same when it comes to what are you afraid he's going to say? Like are we really afraid he's going to open up the New American Standard and read Jesus did not resurrect from the dead? Right. It doesn't say that. It says the same thing. Right. So what is he going to? And he's not. And yeah, maybe you'd say, look, we don't want you to come and try to tell us the King James Bible is no good. Okay, fine, some ground rules. But that's not what they're coming to do. They're the only ones who don't care about it. The King James people are the only ones saying that what Bible is no good. Everyone else doesn't even know this conversation exists and doesn't care. And so anyways.
I didn't know that was a conversation.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge conversation.
I thought Mike Beach did that, man.
What's that?
I thought Mike Beach preached from a different...
No, he's KJV. Oh, yeah, he's KJV.
I had no idea. I thought he was there and he had all these ideas, and I was just like, that doesn't sound like it's from the Bible. Like, he was talking about math and all this stuff, and I was like, that's pretty cool stuff. Like, I'm listening, and I don't think that's from the Bible.
Well, see, I think, and I won't say this about him, but just, and I don't mean him either, but I think that part of the problem with Christianity is that their view of the Bible and their way of interpreting the Bible is so backwards to what it is as literature that they have to come up with all these crazy interpretations to keep being relevant or innovative.
Yeah.
And so they have to make the Bible mean so much more than it's actually intended to mean, right? And so they'll just
because they're extrapolating that, they're building this thing for themselves.
That's exactly what
they're not
doing.
Taking it for what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
And because
maybe that's what always bothered me about it. Why?
And it's because
turn?
Like for instance, the New Testament is a very straightforward book. It's I mean, even the way it's written. And part of the reason why people don't acknowledge or identify this is because Bibles are divided into verses, which is a horrible thing that happened. It wasn't written that way, right? We didn't have verse numberings in the Bible until 1551.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this.
Right.
The Bible.
So the Bible, when it was originally written, let's just talk about the New Testament. When it originally was written, like Romans, it's just one long block of text, basically, as far as we can tell. I mean, we don't have the original, right? But everything we have up until 1551 is just one long block of text.
Scroll.
No, in books. Christians
really?
actually innovated the book from what we can tell. I mean, maybe not. I wouldn't go around saying Christians invented the book form, but most scholars,
can I say that though?
Yeah, you can.
All right.
Most scholars, even unbelieving scholars, believe that Christians either innovated it for the most part, or were very instrumental in it becoming popular.
Huh.
Because the first exemplars of book form type instead of scroll are Bibles.
Gotcha.
And so it's like and there's reasons why they adopted that form.
Because they started writing too much.
Well, there's reasons. There's a lot of reasons for it. But because you got to remember, Christians come from Judaism for the most part, at least traditional in a traditional sense, and Jews still use scrolls.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, they'll have books but when they go to synagogue, they'll usually have a scroll.
So weird.
And they roll it. That's just how it's just tradition.
But they're probably still studying in books, like.
Oh yeah, and computers
doors.
and everything.
Yeah.
But the traditional service, you would probably still have a scroll. That's
pretty cool.
It is. But Christians, so Christians are coming from that. Most of the first Christians were all Jews, and yet everything we find is, in fact, there's evidence that the writings themselves, you can actually make arguments that they were written on book form.
Huh.
Because of the way in which certain breaks are, even in the copies, and the way that there's a lot of it's a rabbit hole. But they can look at the actual text as it exists in copies and say it's pretty clear that this was not written on a scroll, because scrolls tend to get copied in a certain way, and books get copied in a different way.
Cool.
It's very interesting. Anyways.
What were we talking about?
I know, right?
Moderator?
Anyways, what I was saying is that, so when we look at these like Romans or Galatians or whatever, this was a single block of text. This isn't broken into these verses, but Christians now have these Bibles that are broken into arbitrary divisions that aren't even correspond to sentences. So like if you look at like Ephesians chapter 1, which is like, I don't know, I think it's like 24, 25, 26 verses. That's 2 sentences. It is, even in English.
That's crazy.
Even in the translation in English, you look and just
You have a
look
bunch
for
of
the
semicolons
periods.
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, semicolons, commas, and there's like two sentences over the whole chapter. Most Christians think every verse is an independent idea.
Which I know that's not true. I knew that.
Yeah, if you ask a Christian, most of them will, probably not, but they don't read it that way. And that's why when they preach it, they're like, we're going to preach out of this verse.
I
And
feel like Starbucks probably asked me that on the questionnaire, like, is a verse a sentence? And I probably said false or no. And then they were probably like, oh, it kind of is.
It kind of is. Paul wrote it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you
shout
think
out
of,
to Starbucks.
There you go. Maybe they'll hire you, Scott. You're really working Starbucks.
I feel like they're all closed down, probably.
I bet.
Oh, no, we're not. Press Coffee's not closed down. They're probably making a killing in the drive-thru. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
I digress.
So they look at this and they pluck out these verses, right? This single verse, and like, we're going to preach on this. It's like, okay, that's like a fragment of a sentence. That's arbitrarily divided. It's not even divided in punctuation always. It's just arbitrarily divided.
That's so funny. It's
It
funny
is.
to think about.
And so then you wonder, why are we getting so many bad interpretations? Well, it's because you're not reading it and seeing. People are going to wonder
really is.
why you're mixing two bottles.
Yeah, one has vodka. No, that's one was cold and one wasn't. If y'all are wondering, all two of y'all out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one was cold and one wasn't. So I have a right in the middle.
He has an agnostic cup of water.
Exactly. You're invited to go nowhere with no one. Social distancing. Okay, sorry. What were we talking about?
Yeah, I know.
More like, what were you talking about?
Yeah, what was I talking about?
When can we talk
You're
about
back.
Pokemon?
You
Pokemon.
You have a question.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What of them?
What? Is that part of this?
There's still somebody on here?
How long is it? An hour and... All right, who is it?
They don't have a name. You have Wade and Are Found Wanting is the name.
Okay.
So the question is, why
Yum.
can't they read KJV? And I'm not sure what he's referring to on that.
Why can't they read?
The
No, we're not
KJV.
saying that.
I'm not sure exactly. You would have to explain.
I almost
yourself.
guarantee that's a KJVO. King James Version only, if you don't know what KJVO is.
KJV? Oh.
That's like a movement. I'm not sure what. I think what he's saying
okay,
is.
here we go. We got an explanation here.
Oh, okay,
because,
good.
so is this about why Christians, especially fundamentals, are wrong, or why is Scott agnostic?
You're talking about the whole thing?
Yeah.
The whole thing isn't about anything.
It's just a
discussion.
conversation.
But ultimately, he's not saying, I think, that the KJV version of the Bible is wrong or that fundamentalists are necessarily wrong. He just thinks that,
I think that
there's more right.
I think there's an argument. I think there are good arguments that are discussions that ought to be had on both fronts. I personally think that to believe that there might or might not be a God is a position that should be examined, and should be, in so much as I think that you will get to that point actually, in which you will have to answer the question for yourself decidedly. I think at one point, I know I did. I had to come to where it's like I have to have some form of an answer, or at least I have to find it. I don't have to have an answer, because then you fabricate an answer if
Right.
you have that position. But I do have to come to an answer.
Come to a conclusion.
I have to look for.
It's like when
I
I'm-
have to find an. I have to look.
It's like
for
when
an
I'm
answer.
video editing and like there is no end. Like you just have to call it at one point, and that's your conclusion.
Yeah.
And you have to be like, this is the final product, and this is
Right.
what it is. But there could have been so much more done, or like so many more questions asked in a sense. But eventually,
Right.
you have to come to a conclusion.
With me, it was that I had to find. I keep saying that. I say it wrong. I had to search an answer. I couldn't sit without an answer and not search for it. Now, you could search your whole life and maybe not find an answer to something, but this was not a question I could do that. I could not search for an answer for. So that was kind of my position. And as far as like what he's saying, he's taking offense because he doesn't like that I'm not just,
He
I
didn't
guess.
say he's taking offense. He asked a question. Mike.
Yeah. I know. I've heard his questions. He's
okay.
my one viewer.
I might have put words in his mouth, so because I think he's saying this.
Right. I think you were pretty close.
Okay, cool.
I think that he doesn't like that I'm also acknowledging that there's some issues with fundamentalism.
Oh, okay.
And, well, I'm just sorry. I can't have a discussion with
Did you say
anybody.
you're sorry?
I am sorry. I'm sorry that they see it that way, because I think it is a problem. I think that is also a problem with fundamentalism, that it's like the only way we can have a discussion with anyone who disagrees with us is from the standpoint that we have nothing to be examined. What's that?
What are you saying?
Is he still coming to us?
It's a woman,
Oh.
so you gotta change your.
They. Just say they.
Oh, I don't care. I'm not a gender inclusive or whatever it's called. I like he. I think it's a great pronoun.
Whether
It's
they're
the-
a woman or a man.
It's a genderless pronoun in English. I know
I
people
don't agree
think
with that. I think the genderless one is a they.
No, that's a plural though.
No, but no, it's not. Not in every context.
There
it
are
just
a
does
few.
confuse things.
It does.
But it's a confusing language
It is.
altogether. So.
And that's why I just embrace the he. I like the he myself.
And
I
it's
don't
'cause
mean
he is
any
a he.
and I don't mean any disrespect by it.
Which is one thing that you have to take into consideration.
Right.
Which I always respect people's opinions as long as they're not trying to be disrespectful, because we are going to disagree about things.
If I was in a room of she's, I would say she. But it's like, for me, until they come out with one that I think is a pronoun that is widely accepted. Like if they came out and Z became completely normal, everyone's using it, and that's like the genderless pronoun.
And it
for
was
he and
also not a
she.
plural.
Yeah, if it grammatically you weren't even if it was at one time plural and it became like thou is the singular form of you and you was the plural form, right?
Huh.
That's why in the King James you have thous and thee and you and your. They have both. And it's not because one is formal and one's informal. It's because thou is singular and you is plural. So like that's
Fun
y'all.
fact.
So like you in the King James Bible is like y'all.
Right.
Only y'all is not really a word, right?
That's
So
a
I wouldn't
hey,
want the Bible.
that's
to
We
say
should
y'all.
write a
Texan
Texas
word.
version.
You're gonna get shot outside your door if you say that. That's a word.
That's a word, huh?
We should write a Texas
Recognize.
And
version.
if you're in New York, you'd be saying use guys,
Use
right?
guys.
Use guys.
That's-
Right,
that's-
and the old
That's like
way.
4 syllables.
Yeah, I know.
Use
Use
guys.
Use. Yeah.
Okay, so she.
She.
What else did she say?
Yeah, that's it. That's
She just said that she's a woman.
yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Scott is all for you.
I'm not gonna call you he.
Well, I won't anymore anyway.
Now that we know.
Now that I
Now that
know
they've
exactly. Yeah,
identified.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So anyways, what I was saying about that is the pronouns is that I think that if you got one that would be accepted, I would be happy to use it. I'm all for. I love language.
Let's just make one.
Well, that's the problem. You can't. That's the difficulty. I mean, that is the problem. It's like, I think there's a lot of people that would say, hey, come up with pronouns, throw them out there, like Ms.
Yeah.
Ms., they threw it out there, and it took some time. It gained some traction. Now it's a perfectly acceptable, what do they call those?
It's like you can be
title.
married or not married.
Right. It's a Mister. It's
Right.
a Ms. And that's great. Now you come up with a new one today, and you want now I want everyone to call me that. I probably won't. When it's on like government forms and it's like all like normal and everyone.
So if it's on Urban Dictionary, it doesn't count.
No, not for me.
I gotta disagree.
I don't want to have to explain everything I'm saying. So if I, say something and then everyone's looking at me, everyone at the job says like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to understand." It's like, no.
I read a lot of
no.
Michel Foucault.
Yeah.
His discourse on language made me feel like words don't exist. like literally words are changing every day and what they mean, and so
Well, see, that's one of the difficulties with Bible translation.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem is that language changes constantly. This is a difficulty with
the translation.
With King James Bible
Right.
view, is because language changes constantly.
But you understand a lot of what's being said because of the way language is now isn't being understood from the King James version of the Bible, like those King James version funnelas.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, a lot of it just by normal people isn't understood. That's why the American Standard came out with the same concepts.
Right.
So,
Well, that's one reason. Another reason is because they had they came across different manuscripts that are a little different.
Really?
Oh yeah. So you have some manuscripts that are older, and quite a bit
I
older.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So they have manuscripts that are from the year 300 maybe, which is extremely old.
Right.
Right. And most of the manuscripts that the KJV is based on are much younger than that. So you're looking at maybe 700 is the oldest one, I think, that the KJV.
That's so interesting. I had
Yeah.
no idea.
And so there's some minor differences. Now, they're very minor differences.
Right.
There's three major differences between the old manuscripts and the new manuscripts. Like Mark, the last 10 verses of Mark aren't in the older manuscripts. 12 verses in John 8, 1 through 12, with the adulterous woman where Jesus writes on the ground and says who's without sin. Those aren't in the older manuscripts, and like 1 John 5, 7.
So do you think they were added? Or there's no way to tell? There's no way to tell.
Well, I mean, that's textual criticism. It's a science,
Right.
and there's a lot of people doing a lot of work on that. I personally come down on the side that
I'm sure they're not essential right now. Like,
Huh?
I'm sure they're not essential workers right now.
Yeah, I doubt they are.
Oh no, I'm essential. I'm going
essential.
to
The
I'm going to
good thing is
research
you
stuff
can
from
do
the
that at
200s.
home.
Well, literature.
You're
You're gonna have to do
exactly-
it without getting paid for a while.
Yeah,
We're just
right.
saying our financing got cut. We're trying to learn how to like build masks. Right
Yeah,
now, guys.
right. You need to go build a mask. You need to go work in the mask factory. Yeah.
It's funny,
I come
a lot
down
of my
on-
friends work at Dixie Banner Flag Company.
Uh-huh.
They were bowlers at my bowling alley. They had like a team, 2 of them, and they're switching to masks. They
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That makes sense.
It's cool because the Vandeputs own it and or manage it, one or the other. And like Leticia Vandeput ran for office, or she was a senator or something like that. And they're like working to like make sure they're like medically, but they're trying to keep like their seamstresses in business and all their like by making masks, because that's literally what production's switching to because they have to.
Yeah, that's what that guy from My Pillow's doing too.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I think I saw a little.
And there's
article
some
about
others and some of them are going to ventilators. And,
that. Yeah, and Valero's making sanitizer, I think, too.
yeah, it's crazy. Some other people were as well. Yeah, they're doing all
Gas business isn't doing great, is it?
What's that?
Is the gas business doing great?
I don't
Oil?
know. See, I don't know what lower gas. Probably not. They're probably getting
Gas
killed.
is like 20 cents cheaper or more expensive out here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like 20 cents cheaper.
I
in
never
town.
buy out here. Yeah,
That's funny.
I always buy in. There's like there's a gas station on 1604 that's like the cheapest in town.
Wow. Like a cutie or something.
It's
Quick
but
Trip.
they're like built it in a weird place, and so no one can get to it hardly. You have to know where it's at, and so they have to drop their prices to get people to go out of their way to
Gotcha.
get there.
That's funny.
So I get diesel like 10 cents cheaper a
Oh,
gallon.
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got it for 209 maybe.
Questions?
Yeah, you got a question from Stephen Kincaid.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm thinking it's a question for both of y'all. What do you think about Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ?
Have you read Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ or heard about that?
I think I skimmed it. I was given
Yeah,
it.
he
for
was
sure.
a reporter who tries to make it like a journalistic
approach.
to proving the case. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it's solid scholarly work. I don't think it's solid apologetic work.
Can you summarize it?
Basically, he goes through and he talks about who the witnesses were and how many there were and what it cost them to be the witnesses. It's been a while since I've read it, so I don't want to. I could be conflating it with others that have done similar work.
Right.
But it's more of like how a journalist would look at a story. So it's like he's a journalist. He was an atheistic journalist. He was an atheist who was a journalist, I guess is how I should. He didn't report on it, but he
Right.
was an atheist. He was a journalist also. And so he's saying if I was looking at, someone told me there was a guy who lived, this is his life, and he died on the cross, and then he rose again. How could I, as a journalist, verify the story,
Right.
right?
With the resources and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he goes through and does that. And he's looking at the witnesses' account, which many people have done. C.S. Lewis did it, other people have
Or
done
like
it.
cross-examining, seeing where there's differences and
Yeah, like you say,
similarities.
well, there's 500 witnesses,
Well, they all have different perspectives, right?
right? And who gained by it? Did any of them gain? Did they like become like these rock stars, or did they become rich, or did they become powerful?
Or did they have all their eggs in the wrong basket?
Yeah, I mean, it's right. So he goes through all that, and so that's kind of the argument. And he makes some other ones, and they're
Right.
fine. It's just, to me, I'm not convinced that proving that point makes the case to someone who, that's the thing when it clicks over to another file. It
Okay.
always gets me. Like, ding. And every time I do the same thing. Anyway, I'm not sure how convincing it would be.
That's all
to
the time
me.
we have. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay, that's it. I'm not sure how convincing it would be to me if I was still battling or with the questions I once had on faith. I don't know that would make the difference to me. To me, natural theology was far more compelling to me.
Huh. Well, Stephen, can you explain why you're asking?
Nothing yet, but we got another question from
Okay, let's go a different direction and we'll come back.
Susan Jackson. I guess this is for you.
Oh, okay.
So what do you think of those verses that you say aren't in the old manuscript?
Okay. I come down the side that I think that they're legitimate. I think that there's evidence for them. The one I would consider to be the most tenuous, the most I'm iffy on still. I can't say it is authentic or it is original. I should call it original. Is 1 John 5:7. There's very little manuscript evidence for that, but.
What's the message on that?
So 1 John 5:7 is the Trinitarian formula. You'll know it when I quote it to you. There are three that bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. That verse is not in almost any manuscript of the Bible.
And is there any other verse that's like that?
There's no verse that gives you a Trinitarian formula where it's like three are one.
I see.
Right. As far as the Bible saying that all the authors taught that Jesus was God, no, they all do. I mean, it's everywhere.
Right.
So,
but the Trinity as a whole being understood
and
as all three are one.
Well, even that is there, but not like the formula.
I see.
See, like a statement that you could just say, no, the three are one. Here's a verse.
I see.
It's like boom, and it's like discussion over.
Is it in the middle of a sentence?
No, it's actually
it's a whole. That verse is one sentence.
That verse is one sentence.
So maybe Starbucks was like, there are some verses that are just sentences.
Yeah, you were wrong.
You were wrong.
So we're not hiring you. That's the only one that I have a trouble, and I don't have a problem believing it because what it says is, I mean,
it's accurate.
It's like when someone stands up and preaches. When you get a Christian preaching, they'll say things that are not in the Bible verbatim.
Right.
Right. And yet you say what he said is true.
Because there's evidence of it.
Well, because you can find everything he's saying in the Bible. It just doesn't say it in that formula.
Right.
Or in that formulation of it. But it's all there. It's like, I can say the Bible teaches that Jesus and the Father and the Holy Ghost, they're three, but they're one. I can say that. It's a true statement biblically. I believe it's a true statement.
Even without that verse.
Without that verse,
right.
It's a true statement. Most people who reject that verse are not like Jehovah's Witnesses. They're solid Trinitarian Christians who do not believe that verse is authentic or original and don't want it in the Bible. They believe it hurts the case because because
of the evidence behind it,
right,
the scientific evidence.
Right, because you're going to stand up and argue for the Trinity, and they're going to say, but you're using verses that are not in hardly any manuscript.
Huh.
There's evidence that the oldest manuscript that we have is from after the printed Bibles. I don't know if you knew that, but they continue to write handwritten copies of the Bible long after they were printing them.
I mean, it sounds like any text.
Right. Exactly. And so, but
they just now put them as addendums before.
But so here's the argument that's made, and I'm not saying I subscribe to this, but this is the argument that you had that the printed Bible came out, and based on the Latin text, they put this 1 John 5:7 in the Greek text.
Yeah.
And then off of the printed text, they made handwritten copies of it with it in it. And then you say, well,
it feels like manuscripts.
And then they say, well, this manuscript that was made after the printed copy has it, so therefore it's in the manuscripts. Well, now I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's the argument that's made.
Right.
And so most people who don't want 1 John 5:7 in the Bible isn't because they don't like it.
Or don't believe it.
No, they're like solid Trinitarians. They just don't want to go to battle with evidence that they think is suspect.
How do you identify it as a Christian or whatever it is you are?
What do you mean? Like, am I Trinitarian?
I mean, like, how many adjectives?
Oh, yeah.
Do you identify yourself
fundamentalism, Trinitarianism, there's all kinds. Yeah. Modalism.
But it's not just one, right? For you, like, you would put a series of adjectives.
I don't personally. I tell people I'm a Christian.
That's it.
Yeah.
You get lumped in with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. And look, ideologically, I'm definitely in certain camps. They don't allow me into those camps, so I'm without the camp. No, I'm definitely in the fundamentalist, Baptist, Trinitarian. I would be in those camps, and if you ask me, but no, I don't go. I'm not KJ. I would be in the King James camp. Right. Even though King James people can't stand me, I think.
I think of Venn diagrams with what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Right on.
Yeah.
You got more, Steven?
So, Steven has.
Are we getting a discussion going with people?
A little bit, yeah.
All right.
Kind of happens.
Oh yeah. Last week was Steven was on.
Uh-huh.
And man, we had it was like a firestorm.
You know why? Because I told you I'd be the worst guest that you ever had.
No. That's because we were talking about whether or not women have to obey their husbands.
Oof.
And I was saying no. So that's like, that's like heresy in our camp.
Oof. Well, so y'all actually had a debate.
Oh, yeah.
I say no.
Well, of course you do.
Yeah, it's
that's what I told, today's my anniversary. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh,
but
happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy
and so-
anniversary, Terry.
And so it's like, I've been on 28 years of autocorrect.
That's pretty good. That's a good joke. Man, I think you're writing my jokes.
I think I'm writing your jokes. I told you, I moonlight as a comedian in my sermons.
Hold on 1 second, I'm sorry.
So Stephen says that book is mostly just so that it gives an argument of the resurrection.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of wanted to get back to that conversation,
Right.
I think, is what his thing was. Susan wants me to read Brett's question from the way up top. This we'd probably have to go back a couple
go ahead.
conversations on it. Doesn't 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17 that the Bible is all that Christians need? Bible is essential, and all other truth is not essential.
Well, I understand the argument. I mean, I know a lot of Christians make that, but I don't think they're sending their kids to schools that teach the Bible only. I don't think they're sending their cars to mechanics who only work on the car in accordance with the scriptures. I don't think they're going to doctors who only operate with the Bible as their medical guidebook or textbook.
Yeah, and what's the context of those verses? Is it in the context of like, yes, as far as your life or death is concerned, the Bible is essential only? Like, specifically about that, not about specific aspects of life. Because if the Bible's the only thing you need, then you're not going to live day to day, probably.
Well, that's my contention, that you if you went and you had a doctor who said, I learned to operate by reading the Bible, learned to do surgery by reading the Bible, and you had another doctor that said, I went to Harvard Medical School and I never read the Bible, I think every Christian I know would choose the one who went to Harvard Medical School.
Right.
Right? And that is not to say that the Bible is not
the essential one.
Right.
It's just saying that there's
it does not talk about medicine. It doesn't. I don't believe the Bible talks about science. I don't believe the Bible talks about a lot of things. I think the Bible talks very well and very convincingly if we allow it to speak on the things it actually speaks on, right? So whether or not there is a God, actually the Bible doesn't talk about that, which is very interesting. People think it does.
It assumes it.
Right. It assumes it to be true. That's exactly right. It doesn't, to my opinion, it does not speak to the fact of whether or not there is a God. It's about, is there a God? I mean, if there is a God, this is what people say they have found God to be, or what they believe God to be, or what God has revealed himself to be would be the most in line with the way I believe it to be. That God has written the Bible from a presuppositional standpoint. God exists. You have to square with that fact however you can.
Right.
And that's what Paul says. Paul says in Romans that the Gentiles who don't know God don't have an excuse because God is found through nature. That's what Paul says. And that's for everybody. It's not just for Gentiles. Everybody finds God. What Paul is saying is everybody finds the existence of a maximally great being through what you can see, what you can perceive, right? Through empirical evidence, through what we would call nature. That's what Paul says. Once you've reached that point, he's saying God has revealed himself. And he's not an impersonal, maximally great being. He actually has a will and he has an opinion. And this is what it is. And then the Bible, I believe, proceeds from that position, from that point of view, saying you have to get to the point where you accept that there is a God. And that'll be by evidence and by natural observation. It won't be through revelation. And once you get there, then you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, if there's a God,
what does it mean?
What does that mean? And who is he? Is he, I mean, because without him being something personal, it seems like pointless. An impersonal God I would consider to be a pointless position.
Yeah.
I understand people that get there, and I think that if you do like Paul says, the Apostle Paul says, which is you approach it from a natural theology standpoint, you're going to come to a point where you have to say, and that's why I look at the arguments, to me, they're just incredibly compelling. I don't find any good argument against him. And I've listened to tons of Dawkins, Harris, Dillahunty, and all the others. Yeah, they're all a bunch of atheist apologists that argue against the Christian apologists. And when they go against like William Lane Craig and others like that who are natural theologians, I don't think they have an answer. I think his arguments are very compelling. In fact, the saying among atheists is that William Lane Craig, who's a Christian apologist, natural theologian, is that he puts the fear of God into atheists. I mean, atheists don't really like debating him. He's really good. And he's very nice. I mean, this guy is like...
That's the best part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Debater, if they're nice.
Yeah, you knew my granddad, right? Dale?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, imagine him.
God.
Imagine him with like crazy philosophical...
He's like a buttery, warm croissant.
Yeah, he's just he's just incredibly nice. And yet...
In personality, not in flavor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Taste.
So anyways, I think that you get to from natural theology, you get to the fact that God exists, and from that point, to not have a pointless position, then you have to think, well, a being that is maximally great would also be a personal being. It seems to me would make sense. And then what would that be? And then the question
not
is...
only personal, but also personal.
Right.
Right.
And so then you would have to ask yourself, then I have to ask myself, it's like, well then, is it for me to discover him, or must he reveal himself? And I don't think that any personal being can be discovered. I think they can only be revealed. I think you only know about your wife what she reveals to you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way we can extract from somebody. And I
Something
think a lot of the misunderstandings among people is because we extract our opinion from them and don't accept what they reveal about themselves.
Right.
Right?
And we're all guilty of that.
Absolutely.
There's no way to avoid that.
Absolutely. And so I think it's the same way with God. I think that there's no way we're going to discover who God is as a personal God, as actually having a will and a character, except it be revealed. If the Bible is not the revelation of God, well, then I think we're lost, because I can't find anything else that would come close to being that.
Right.
Right? And especially when I'm talking about the New Testament. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm saying I don't believe the Old Testament.
So do you personally feel, I know we have a flood of questions.
No, don't worry about it. No, he's the gatekeeper. We don't. We talk, and he worries about that. Yeah.
Oh, what was I gonna say?
You were gonna say if I personally.
Oh, personally, what were we talking about?
Oh, we're talking about how we discover that God reveals Himself.
Yes. Okay, so I feel like God will only reveal Himself completely when we die.
It's possible, but then that would be a pointless revelation. That would be like your wife not revealing herself to you until you. So
you feel like God has revealed Himself?
I think so. I think that logically, I have to think that he would. Now, we can, I can in my mind argue, well, maybe it's not the Bible. And I've looked, and I know I'm not the person who's like, well, I grew up with the Bible and that's the Bible. I've actually read the sacred texts of other religions.
Huh.
Because, how do I know that it's not the Quran? How do I know it's not the Bhagavad Gita? How do I know it's not some other,
Right.
How do I know? Well, if you don't read it, you can't know, right? I can't make the assumption that I just happen to be the luckiest person on earth, born in a home
Another
with
thing
the
that always
right
bothered
book,
me. Right. Another thing that always bothered me about how I was raised
absolutely.
Christian.
It's like, so I'm lucky. Well, maybe I am. I mean, look,
Right.
There are lucky people. You can't say that because you're lucky it means it's not true.
Yeah.
Because the King of England was lucky.
Yeah, because
Right.
he got coronavirus. Oh, that's the prime minister.
That's the prime minister. No, I mean, if you're born the King of England, well, you're lucky. It doesn't mean you're not the King of England, though, right? I mean, you're there by luck. It's not because you earned it, right? You just happen to be born into the family.
Yeah.
But you're still there. It's still a reality, right? So just because I was born lucky doesn't mean it's not true, but it doesn't mean it is true either.
And it's hard for me, and I think a lot of agnostics and atheists who believe that, to just be like, why would a higher being who is all encumbering, why would they make luck a factor? You know what I mean? That's hard.
Right.
That's hard for somebody to.
It is hard,
and that's another problem that
it
I
is
have
a problem
with believing.
Now, I'm personally not a Calvinist, but the Calvinist answer to that is that there is no luck, and that God makes choices.
Yeah, and everything's determined and all that jazz.
Not exactly deterministic, There's subtle differences.
It just seems like their version of free will isn't free will.
No, they don't believe in free will.
Yeah, so-
But what's interesting is that most atheists now don't either,
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
Really?
Like, Sam Harris is like, he's like Calvinist, no free will.
Things just happen as they're going to happen.
That you are.
And there's a formula or something.
That you are your neurons, how they're connected, and that's you could have been a serial killer if your brain would have been wired differently, and you have no choice in the matter.
Which, I mean,
I don't know.
hard to say because it's
an
a
interesting
cause effect. I mean, how would you know?
Right. And
how would you know if they did a different thing and did a different path?
And we
because
know
they
that,
didn't?
people will like get hit in the head and all of a sudden act very differently than they ever used to.
Right.
And so there is something to it. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that it's not just Calvinists now that deny free will. It used to be like, oh, the Calvinists, they don't believe in free will.
Oh,
now
that's
it's
so
like
funny.
atheists are saying, no, they were onto something. They just don't think it's God who makes
That
the
is so
determination.
funny.
Yeah.
How do you not believe that we have any control if we have? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's weird. See, I'm personally not a Calvinist, so
Yeah.
I'm not in the camp. I actually believe that free will is the best logical explanation for the problem of evil, because that's a huge problem. Is why is there evil?
It's another
in the
thing
world?
with this whole coronavirus thing. It's just like, well, what if we did nothing? I'd be like, well, then we would have had a different outcome probably. But
Yes.
well, we only have this outcome because of what
Right.
y'all are doing, what society's doing.
That's right.
That's the only reason we have this outcome. So it's not like they didn't decide that or they did decide that. It's just what has happened,
Right.
what has been decided based on like whatever manipulations and Illuminati, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, how can
No.
you say that what wouldn't have happened? I don't know. Free will. Ugh.
Well, yeah,
I get it.
and there's the arguments that are bandied about against free will amongst Christians are, in my opinion, usually pretty silly. There's some that are good, but some are silly. Like you didn't decide where to be born. Well, that's not really a decision, right? It's not that presupposes that there's people floating around like they're little people in the
Right.
heaven waiting to be born, and they don't get to choose. It's not how that works at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a complicated thing. But anyways, I come down on the side of not Calvinist at all, and so I don't know how we got into all
Yeah.
that.
Let's take another. We go back to Stephen. Is that where we're at?
That's it for questions.
Okay,
for
good.
now, so.
Yeah, but anyways, what I was saying is that that free will is to me the best answer for the problem of evil, because the problem of evil is how can there be so much suffering in the world?
Right.
Evil means both like natural suffering, like hurricanes, whatever, people dying from disease, corona, whatever, and also evil like evil doing,
Serial killer,
like people killing
rape
each
and
other and
stuff,
things.
yeah.
How do you answer that? How can you say there can be evil in the world and be a God who is personally invested in people?
Just real quick. Why did you tell me my glasses were so dirty?
I didn't even
I'm
notice.
just sitting here with smudges.
You didn't notice you couldn't see me? You were seeing me less and
I
less?
mean,
It's probably because you're
I'm seeing you
cussing.
less and less, understanding you more and more.
Good.
Okay, sorry. Where were we at? Evil.
Yeah, the problem of evil and how you can have a personal God and then also have a world that's evil. And
Right.
like if a God is all powerful, all knowing, and all good, why wouldn't he solve the problem of evil? Why would there be evil in the world? Better?
Yeah.
Good. And so
There's still smudge, but it's better.
yeah. So,
Why would he
I
create
think-
evil?
That's a question. Did he create evil? See, that's another question that's, to me, not exactly obvious, because I'm not sure evil is a thing, in that darkness isn't a thing. It's something we call it, but it's really a construct.
It's
It's an
the
absence of
a
something.
thing.
Correct.
Right.
And there's a very strong philosophical argument that's made, not just by me, but by philosophers, that says that evil isn't a thing. It's the absence of a thing. Evil is the absence of good. So God didn't have to create evil.
That's interesting.
And so, yeah, but then why is there this absence? Why is there what we would call evil if God could fix that? And so I have a couple of the normal answers. They're not I didn't innovate, obviously, in this, but is that free will is the answer, is one of the answers.
Huh.
That if you could imagine a possible world, let's say imagine a world in which there were no evil, no bad ever happened to anybody of any
It'd
sort.
be boring.
Well, it'd be boring probably, maybe, but it would be without free will,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't have choices because you couldn't choose to do evil. So that choice would be taken away. So you would have and once you take a choice away, then it's harder to call it free will.
Right.
The more choices you remove, it's like in Cuba, you have free elections,
But
but there's only one name on the ballot, right? Or at least that's the way it was. I don't know how it is lately. I don't want to
and there's no
besmirch
write-in.
Cuba.
There's no write-in option.
But I don't think so. I think that's like you write in, send me to the gulag. That's what you write in.
They're like, yeah, you could just put a little X down there and vote for me, and write it in.
Yeah, go through. Yeah, I don't think so.
And you have to literally white out the candidate.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
So
they'll count that mark.
So
as
that's
a
hard to
vote.
call that a free election. I mean, yeah, you elected freely, but you had one option. And so it's the same way. If there's no evil in the world, if there's no evil, then there's no free will.
Right.
Right. And so free will to me is an answer to the problem of evil. It's not the only answer, and it's not a sufficient answer. Because there's, what do you do with natural evils? That really aren't matters of choices. I mean,
Right.
people don't choose to be born deformed. People don't choose to be, sucked up into a sinkhole in Florida in their
Yeah.
car. These are things people aren't choosing. So it doesn't answer everything, but it does answer a lot of it.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's like I can't have good days without bad days.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
have days.
Right. You'd have, there'd be no, that'd be the contrast argument. It's like there's no contrast to things, right?
Right.
Yeah. But the interesting thing to me is that the Bible does speak of a world that will be made that will have no evil. And so, to me, the true answer to the problem of evil is that world. And that is that how do you have a world with no evil, but with free will? Well, you have a world with evil that you can choose to not be part of. So when a Christian believes, and I think most Christians don't fully comprehend the meaning of what it is to believe. I think they take, like what you talked about,
Take it
accepting
blindly.
Jesus Christ, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of a mystical thing that they see
Right.
it as. And they're not looking at it nearly doctrinally correct enough of what's really going on, what's really happening. And I think it's a mistake to not teach it properly. I think me getting saved at 6, I had no idea what I was talking about.
Right.
And I'm not sure I was saved at 6. As far as I
Honestly.
know, not, because I didn't have a clue what I was really talking about, thinking.
Don't what you're
Yeah, and I think it's a much more doctrinal issue.
right.
But here's kind of how I see it as what it is, and what it means when I say that I've believed in Christ, what this means. It's shorthand. It's not very good shorthand, but it's shorthand for what it is I've actually think. So here it is. There is a world that God is going to create with no evil in it. And
We
it's
have to
going
pick
but it's going to have free will also. Meaning nobody goes into there except they chose the world as it would be.
Right. And that's
Now, you would
heaven.
think, why wouldn't everyone choose that world? But not everyone would choose that world.
No.
Absolutely not. If you offered it right now, if you said, hey, there's a state in the union that has no coronavirus,
Right.
but you can't do anything you want to do. Or there's this other state that has coronavirus like crazy, but you can do anything you want to do. A lot of people would choose the
More
debt.
people.
Oh, probably so. Probably so. And so I think God has given that choice to people.
Yeah.
I think that is the choice he's giving them. He's saying, I'm going to make a world with no evil in it. And the only way you can get into it is
You have to choose it.
choose it. You have to choose, and you have to choose it now, which means you have to make choices now. See, this is the problem with Pascal's wager, in my opinion. Pascal's wager, you probably have heard it, just maybe not under the title.
Right.
Pascal's wager is, you see it on Facebook memes all the time. It's one of the ones I wish Facebook would ban because it's so offensive. Anyway, Pascal's wager is this. If you're an atheist and you're wrong, you lose everything. If you're a Christian and you're wrong, you lose nothing.
Nothing.
Yes, that's completely wrong. Absolutely wrong. It completely undervalues the value of truth.
Right.
It denigrates the value of truth. If you are an atheist and you're right, you did win something. You're right. Being right now matters. It's like
Period.
It matters, exactly. Even if you're right that there's nothing beyond right now, then you've gained. If you're a Christian and you're wrong, Paul says everything you believe is vain. Your whole life is useless.
Right.
That's what Apostle Paul said. He said if we're wrong in this life, he says we're the most miserable of men. The idea that a Christian has no risk in believing, that view that Christians
no
have,
value.
right. And it completely denigrates the whole concept of the gospel. The gospel is saying there is a life that I'm going to not live today. because by doing so, I am choosing to enter into a world later that is without sin, without pain, without suffering. That I can only get in by making choices now, by free will now. And so, I mean, that's a huge wager that's a gamble, right? Because is there that world? Well, then that comes to whether or not you believe the revelation of it.
Right.
And if it was only revelation, like straight up, God speaks from heaven, I probably wouldn't believe it. I probably wouldn't, because I mean, how could you validate?
How could you determine it?
That it really was, right?
And it wasn't a voice in your head, or
exactly.
What I mean?
No, a lot of things. And so, to me, understanding how the New Testament is structured as a philosophical treatise, like Paul is like incredibly compelling to me. That's what convinced me.
Yeah.
I read Paul, and he's saying, no, forget about all the mysticism, forget all that. All the mystic Judaism, he says, forget it. It's all ruined. Forget that. Think about it. And he goes through and he walks you through
and make a decision.
Very serious thinking on why it's logical and intelligent to believe that such a world could exist, and that a God, as he would reveal himself if he were there, would make such a world, and why that is a completely logically coherent thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I wish Christians would read the Bible and teach it. That's how I wish they would talk about it. Like, no, forget about these. They take a verse and it's like, say whatever you want to say about the verse, and it's like, no.
That's why you made your own church.
It's like, no, it can't be that. Paul is making this long, very detailed argument. I mean, Romans is like crazy, complicated argument on what you do with people like Gentiles who've never heard the Bible. He deals with that. It's like, okay, you got these people, these Aztecs, they've never read the Bible. What about them? Paul says, no, let's start there.
Yeah.
Let's start with those people. And let's not just dismiss it like, oh, they deserve to go to hell. No. Let's start there. And let's see how the gospel actually deals with all these things. And he goes through and he explains that. And what about these Jews who say they have revelation? Good, let's talk about that. Chapter 2. Let's talk about the Jews who have all this revelation. And then what about people that are in the middle? Well, let's talk about the Greeks and the Romans and what this means to them. And he walks through and he says, and that's how he gets to his conclusion. And his conclusion is, after all of that heavy philosophical lifting, his conclusion is, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, which everyone jumps to in Romans 10:9. It's like, believe that, that's after 10 chapters of some of the most strenuous philosophical thinking.
Figuring out things.
Yes. Making a case saying, this is the logical end of some
Maybe
very
I'll give Romans another read.
You should. It is a fascinating. What I did, and to me it like made all the difference. I took the digital text, and I just got rid of all the verses numberings and just made it a big long, like a book.
Yeah.
And I quit thinking this is Revelation. I quit saying.
How did you do that?
Oh, I just decided not this. I'm just gonna.
You typed it out yourself?
Oh no! I got it. You can get it from our website, freebornchurch.com. Little plug there. Freebornchurch.com. We actually have. It's called the Reader's Bible. I actually put it up there.
Cool.
And it's just the text, no numbering, no chapters, no verses, just the text, and you can just read it.
I can't read the Bible anymore with verses.
I know it irritates me. It's like.
What is all these numbers?
Imagine if every 15 arbitrary words you had to stop. 13 and then start again. 14 and then start again. And 15. I mean, what kind of conversation would that be?
Yeah, it's like grabbing I don't know what kind of books you like, but grabbing a book and then I go in there and just write numbers 1 through 10,000.
Well, and not just numbers, but then you put them all in a line and you capitalize the first letter of every one.
Make it feel like a new sentence.
Yes. Yeah. Even though it's like in the middle of a sentence. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy way to read the Bible.
I probably have some time right now.
Yeah. And so I just said, I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm just going to see if maybe Paul had something really insightful to say about this matter that he deals with. Or is he just saying, believe in Jesus and you'll be saved, and that's like the declaration? Or is he
like
saying,
he just ignores everything that he was talking? He's just like, yeah, but this.
Or just has a bunch of platitudes. Or does he just have like these Confucius say type platitudes, right?
Right.
No, that's not what he does at all. I mean, Romans, Galatians, Hebrews, they're all dealing with different things, but he's going through and he's saying, look, let's make a case for this. A very strong case.
It's interesting.
Coming from a logical perspective. Can we make a case for a God who has revealed this in this way? And would it be logical, this revelation? Is this revelation logical? So God is saying that there's salvation in Jesus Christ. Is that a logical statement? Well, he says, well, we have to consider, what about people who have never heard the Bible? Right? These Aztecs. What are we going to call them? He doesn't know about the Aztecs, but he says,
Right.
the people who have
Anybody.
never heard, right?
The people we don't know.
Right. What about them? What does that mean for them? And he goes through and makes that case, makes a case for what it means for the Jewish people. And how do they fit into this? Because they've had the Bible all this time. What does that mean for them? And so on. And then and that's just, the simple stuff. He goes into some really deep concepts on all of this. And he gets to the point of saying that basically he comes to saying there is a God. God has revealed himself to us through how? Well, it's through inspiration. Which inspiration, according to, even though there's not a formulation of this in the Bible, but putting it all together, inspiration is that God has given understanding to people and authority to explain it. So it doesn't mean that God is speaking like verbatim through Paul.
It's like why a person does art.
Kind of. It would be like if there were the God of art.
It's hard to explain it.
Right.
But you feel compelled to do it. Hard to explain why you're going to do it.
But then there's another element. That is true. You have that. But then you have the element that you've been authorized to do so.
it. Right.
Right. Which makes it authoritative. So why is Paul's writing more meaningful or more authoritative than my writing? Even if I'm talking about the same subject. Because I haven't been authorized.
But who's to say that he was authorized?
Well, that is the question.
Right.
So
That is the question.
And Paul does deal with that in some of his epistles. How
Right.
do you know? Because there was a huge contingency. Paul wasn't like Peter, who was accepted as an apostle.
And there's no evidence aside from him finding out feeling that he is
No, he said
authored?
there was evidence. He said, so Paul, like I said, Paul was not like Peter. Most people didn't accept Paul's apostleship.
Oh, okay.
So in his day, he was not, by many Christians did not think of Paul as being authorized.
Huh.
And so he had to argue for his position. He had to say, no, what I'm writing you is authorized. This is the word of God. Not because God channeled through me,
Right.
but because he authorized me to say this, to give you. It's kind of, the way inspiration is dealt with, I think, in the Bible, is inspiration is kind of like chain of command.
Uh-huh.
So like when a general tells a sergeant, go tell your troops this, well, he may not go and say it verbatim.
Right.
But what he's saying, because he's been authorized to give a command, in so much as that command is consistent with the general's command, that is the word of the general.
Huh.
Verbatim. Even if it's not verbatim.
Right.
And that's what we find that with Paul. Paul will talk about things, and then he'll say, that's not the word of the Lord, that's my word. Which is interesting. It's like, but then we say, well, that's the word of the Lord.
The whole thing is the word of the Lord.
Right. So then, but he's saying,
but he's not
this
giving it
isn't-
power.
But he's saying, what I'm telling you here, this is not from the Lord. This is from me.
That's from me.
But it is the word of the Lord, because it's authorized. Because he
That's
says,
like a contradiction.
yeah, exactly.
Those are the biggest truths that I found are contradictions. It's true, man. It's. I feel like everything that I understand is a contradiction. Like,
Yeah,
there's always
some things can be.
something to derationalize it, but there's no way to, and that's what makes sense. Like,
Right.
just that it's a contradiction and it's there.
Well, I would share the thought that I am very skeptical of ideas that seem too pat.
What do you mean by that?
That seem too, like there's nothing against them. It's like, boom.
It's like
Like
totalitarian.
mic drop.
Yeah.
It's like mic drop. It's like, I found the truth to be a little messier
Yeah,
than that,
always.
right? Than just this plain, and this is my problem with fundamentalist view on the Bible, is that it's such a superficial, everything's pat answer
Right,
thing.
right.
Not all of them. And I know some of our fundamentalist friends, women, apparently, don't like me talking like that. And I'm not trying to paint them all with that brush. It's just the movement tends to that direction in my view.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a fundamentalist, so I feel like I'm entitled to criticize.
You have a question, Scott,
Uh-oh.
from Jessica Wiseman.
Oh,
Okay.
What are your thoughts on
What up?
afterlife?
What are my thoughts on it? I don't have a lot of thoughts on them. It's going to be sad. It's going to be the absence of everything that I know to be true. That's pretty much it. And I've come to terms with it, is my biggest thing. Is that if there is some sort of consciousness in my afterlife, it will be, in a sense, a gift, just like salvation was a gift. you know, and I feel like, you know, if I'm a good person, I'll go to heaven if it exists. And if I try to live a life that isn't completely selfish and, you know what I mean? Like I live for other people and I live for meaning. And even if that meaning is, you know, making a show about gun running, you know, if I can entertain people and, you know, take them away from whatever problems they have in life just for 22 minutes at a time, you know, then that's my purpose. You know, it sounds so, you know, not fulfilling, but that's what I feel like. If I've been called to do anything, that's what I've been called to do. You know, I rap because I feel comfort in it, and I feel authoritated to rap about my stupid life. You know what I mean? And I feel like people respond. And,
Right.
And if there's any response, if it's negative, if it's positive, if it makes them believe stronger in whatever they believe and feel more comfortable about going about their lives, and just for a moment, if I can entertain them, you know, like a monkey or whatever, like, then I've achieved, you know, what my purpose I feel is,
Right.
if there is a thing as purpose.
Well, see, I would agree with a certain portion of what you just said, actually. And one of my complaints on the Christian side, and I agree with atheists, and the atheists and agnostics that engage on this. Not all of them. Like you, I don't think you walk around like I want to engage with Christians and explain to them why
Not for
they're wrong.
years, right?
Yeah, but some do, and I have no problem with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I like it. I listen to them all the time on YouTube and stuff. That's who I listen to.
Right.
I don't listen to my side. I hear them in church.
Right.
And it's not being dismissive. I want to hear what other people say to be able to engage with
Yeah.
something interesting. It's not interesting to me to hear what I'm thinking.
Keep
thinking
your
that
enemies closer type of thing.
I have all those thoughts already.
Right.
I don't need more of them. I want to
solidify what you know by.
and I want to know where I'm wrong, right?
Right.
So I got to hear opposing viewpoints to be able to engage in that. But anyways, one of the arguments that atheists and agnostics will tend to make about Christianity, which I think is a valid argument, is that Christians do not find value in this life. So there's a world to come in which there's no suffering. That's the world in which they want to go to, and none of this world matters. And I find that to be, it's overgeneralized. Not all Christians are that way, but many Christians are that way in their philosophy.
And with that philosophy, there's a
worldview.
lot of evil that could be done on this earth.
Exactly. Well, that's what atheists say,
Yeah.
right? That's Sam
Exactly.
Harris's and Dawkins. That's their argument, right? That the evil of religion comes because they don't believe there's anything good in this world, and so blowing it up or destroying. They're mainly speaking of jihadi, right? But even Christians have done some very
Oklahoma
atrocious
bombings,
things.
whatever, yeah.
Have done terrible things, believing that it doesn't matter because we're in this world. Now, most Christians are not that extreme at all,
Right.
But they do blow up their own life in a metaphorical sense. Many of them, right? They don't pursue value many times. They don't pursue career. It's like none of that matters. It's like we just get by because we're living for heaven. And that is categorically wrong in the Bible. They are not respecting the scriptures. The scriptures say very clearly that everything we do in this life, we're supposed to do with all of our strength, it says, to our utmost ability. We should be productive in this life. I have a problem with Christians who think that barely getting by is fine. I'm talking about financially, and prosperity
Right.
and gift, whatever it is. Like, I'm a businessman. I think it would be unchristian of me to not be an excellent businessman, which means make a lot of money. That's what it means. That's what being a good businessman means. That's the way in which that's measured.
Right.
If I was a singer, it would be writing great songs. That would be the measure of it.
Yeah.
In different ways. And I think that Christians do not take this world seriously enough. They think it doesn't matter because they're living for the world to come. But then they're not making any real choices either now, I don't think. Anyway.
Thanks for the question.
I would my point is I do agree to an extent with what you're saying. Where I would disagree with what you're saying is that I think that I have to search and know as best I can what that world is and what it consists of. I can't assume that my intuition of what it is and how to get into it is correct.
Right.
And now I may not, speaking, I think I know, but let's assume for sake of argument I don't. I could say I may never know what the entrance requirement is.
Right.
But I cannot just assume that it's being a good person.
Right. And I definitely, I was kind of being a little facetious about
Sure.
saying that, right? But yeah, I feel like, I don't know.
Well, I understand where you're at. I
My biggest thing is I don't want to search anymore. You know, like
gotcha.
I'm done searching. I feel like I know all I know. And yes, I could dig and search and keep asking questions, but those questions just turn into more questions.
a lot of times they do.
And I feel like I would lose my entire what I really value about my life.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
I do.
I don't want to make movies about the philosophy of Christ and religion or evolution. Like I don't care. Like
Yeah.
like I just want to make a narrative story with a character arc.
Yeah.
Like follow the old Shakespearean structure. Like with some twists and turns.
Well, see,
And
I don't know if
that's
you're.
what makes me happy.
I don't know if you're alluding to this, but if you're not, you correct me. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Sure.
But like for instance, with that, I think Christians again have, and this is why people are not liking what I'm saying, because I'm talking about where I think Christians have also gone wrong.
If you're offended, that means you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I've.
But I
learned.
think Christianity has gone wrong in many fields, and that they have turned every field into being only about Christian things. So like Christian Science is all about now proving creation.
Right.
When Christian scientists that were Christians, like Isaac Newton and many others, gravity was not about Christianity,
At all.
right? And other things. They were strong Christians
Trying to explain the things that.
who were doing science.
Right.
Now, there are some that are not like that. Like James Tour, I don't know if you know, have ever heard him. Fantastic, amazing scientist. He's one of the leaders in nanotechnology. He's making these tiny nano machines. He's got a company now they're starting up where they're going to you can put them in your bloodstream, and they're going to go around and find cancer cells and drill holes in them and kill them. And so you'll just have anti-cancer, but it's not like chemicals. It's just like a machine, like a nano machine.
Which we are turning into robots.
I know, it's
exciting.
great. I mean, it's great. But this guy's
I was reading this stuff about 5G last night. That was freaking me out.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're burning towers and stuff now.
I
because of
know.
that, yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's some scary stuff.
Yeah. But anyways, he's
Yeah.
like this amazing scientist, and he's an incredibly strong fundamentalist Christian. And yet, whenever he's talking, he's like, when I'm on science, it's a science, not Christian.
At all.
Right. This is not.
It's like
there's
separation
nothing
of church and
This
state.
is not. The Bible doesn't help me here. The Bible helps me as a person, or my faith informs me as a person, but it's not in
Has
science.
nothing to do with that.
Right. And same way with being a filmmaker or being I don't go to work with a big sign that says I love Jesus and telling everyone turn or burn or whatever. Most people don't even know
You
I am
wouldn't be a great
pastor.
businessman. Yeah.
I'm going to work to make money because I make money for the people that hire me.
Right.
I make money for myself, and I have a bunch of employees I have to make money for because they got to live.
Yourself and your family.
Right. And this isn't me turning my back. I live a Christian life. I
Right.
don't lie. I don't cheat my employers or my bosses. I don't, do those things because my faith informs me. But being a Christian does not make me a better installer.
Right.
It doesn't. Installing better and faster is me looking at the mechanics of it, the science behind it, because there actually is, and I'm actually pretty good at it.
In the business.
And the business end of it, and all of that, and none of that has anything to do with the Bible or Christianity. And I think that I need to be meaningful in every aspect of who I am.
Right.
And I can't think that what makes making a film meaningful is it has to be about Jesus Christ. I wish there were more Christians that were making films.
Right.
Right? Now, I would prefer films that didn't have objectionable content to my tastes. Right? But I don't think they need to be about Christianity. I hate Christian films.
Pretty boring.
They're horrible. They're worse than boring.
Yeah.
They're right on the nose. It's like, oh, good grief, this is worse than a
Yeah.
sermon. Can't you just make a story? Can you tell a story?
Yeah.
Does everything have to? Yeah, I just saw. My wife drags me to them. She loves them. I hate them. I really.
But you
do.
love to hate them, don't you?
No, I hate to. I just don't even.
You just hate them.
There's some things that are bad like that you can love to hate. These
Yeah.
are just too bad to even love to hate. They're really bad.
I think if they're too bad, then you start to love to hate them.
I don't know.
They're probably
I'm not there
right-
yet. They
right
may
on
not
the
be bad
line.
enough then, but they're so
all that
bad.
matters.
Now, so there's this one, right? What is it? Overcomer, the new one that just came out.
No idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
Is new Christian film, and so this guy, he's like a coach, and things aren't going well in his life, and things aren't working out the way he wanted. That's the storyline, okay? And so he's frustrated, and he's out there, and his wife comes out, and she's like telling him something, I need you to do it. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. But he's like, about that tone of voice right now, and my life is falling apart. And then like 10 minutes later, they're like hugging. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. And me and my wife were like dying laughing. We're like, lightweights. That's not a fight. That's not even, you're barely, that's like love talk there. That's nothing. You didn't throw anything. You didn't punch in the wall. Give me a break. What are you apologizing for? I mean, we're dying laughing. It's like so ridiculous. That was
Where were you going?
terrible. I don't know. Christian.
Christian film. I guess.
Have you haven't seen the show The Chosen?
No.
Now that's a good show.
Oh, is it really?
I think it is personally. And
what's it on?
Well, it's about Jesus. It's his life, right? They've taken the Gospels and they're just making a movie out of it.
What's it on?
VidAngel, and
okay.
You can find the first episode free on YouTube, and then you go to their app, and they do a pay it forward thing. So like you don't pay to see it. You get to see it for free because other people paid for you to see it. Is how they do it.
And then I have to pay for somebody else.
If you want to.
Oh, cool.
If you want to, then you could pay and other people can see it.
I won't pay.
But that's how they do it. So I did. I mean, I was like real curious. I love the show. To me, it's just great. It's great movie.
And you paid it forward.
I did. I actually gave him quite a bit of money because I love the production value.
Well.
In other words, I can read the story anytime.
Yeah, but
they
can you make it entertaining?
And they made it well. I thought they made it well. It's not like they didn't depart from the story, but they definitely expanded it, putting characters, right? Like Matthew's the tax collector, and he's like OCD, and he's like locking his house, and he's like OCD counting and doing the numbers, and they got these characters, and I don't know. I mean,
that's cool.
It's not as high a production as you would get if you had like a multi-billion-dollar, Game of Thrones type production, but it's far superior than any Christian production I've seen in the way they've done it.
Cool. Maybe I'll check it out.
You ought to check it out.
So I gotta read Romans.
It's really interesting.
I got to read Romans.
Gave you all kinds of homework.
10.
Yeah, read it.
I'm never going to be back.
No. That's why I wanted to get it all in one time. He's going to be running for it. Save me. I guess we need to wrap it up. We went a little long. Yeah, it's 11:30. Man, 2.5 hours. Good.
You got some more questions?
Oh, go through them quickly.
I just got charged for Best Buy in my Geek Squad, and Ellie's like, what did you buy? You said you were going to be in a podcast. And I was just like, no, I'll call and dispute it. I meant to cancel that. They didn't warn me. They're supposed to warn me. Best Buy, you're not doing so good.
So you got Madison Kennel has a question. What do y'all think of C.S. Lewis' explanations of the presence of evil being logical case for God and or his somewhat naturalistic theory arguments in mere Christianity?
I like C.S. Lewis. I think C.S. Lewis is very good. It's old. It's like reading a science paper from 50 years ago. If you're in the context, it's fantastic. C.S. Lewis was the first one to really argue for Christianity from an intellectual standpoint, or at least not the first one, but he was the first one in a long time. It'd been a long time since Christians had really done it. And so he kind of broke ground. In fact, he's the one that they coined the term apologist for, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love C.S. Lewis in that sense, but it's more of an historical appreciation. Some of his arguments now don't hold up well, and there's more work being done, better work being done on it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on that because I don't know a lot. But I do like C.S. Lewis as an author.
Did you like The Lion, the Witch, and the Road? Did you read those?
I mean, I read a few of them, not all of them. But, I mean, they're okay. I mostly like those, the space series that he had.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Kennel, I think, turned me on to that.
Yeah,
and I loved those books. Loved them.
See, I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when I was a kid. I just loved the writing.
Yeah.
The writing is it just puts you in the world. When
It
I
does.
read him,
It definitely does.
I'm in the world.
Yeah.
I'm like there, and that to me is a great writing.
Yeah, and that's definitely what the space one. I forgot what they were called.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I read the first two.
They're not near as popular, but yeah.
I think they're better though. I mean, I guess I'm just more interested.
Well, he also
in
wrote
space.
those for the little kids. I mean,
The
Lion, the Witch, and Road are more kids' books. So
I like space stuff. It's cool.
Okay. You have Joseph Kennel. What do you think? What do you think of Isaiah 45:7, which is full sentence but also Hebrew poetry, tread lightly? I form the light and create darkness. I am peace and I create evil.
Yeah, that's a very misunderstood verse. So a lot of people use that to say, well, God created evil because he said, I create evil. But that's not understanding evil in context. So when God says, I create evil, he's not saying I made sin. He's saying that the the punishment that you have, the punishment I inflict, I do that. I punish you. It's like a parent saying, I spanked you. This wasn't.
But you chose to do the offense.
Well, yeah,
Right.
that's a separate issue. But God's saying, like, evil's come in your life, or suffering has come in your life. I did that. Now, he's not saying that all suffering in the whole world he personally did. He's speaking to Israel, and he's saying, nothing has happened to you as a nation that I didn't do. I did that. I punished you. I created it. I did both. And so, to me, it's very good because God is saying, look, I'm not just Santa Claus God. It's not just good things that I give you. I also am capable of punishing. And that's what he's saying. But he's not talking about sin, and he's not talking about all forms of natural disaster either. It has to be taken into its very clear context.
I don't think that question was for me either.
Okay.
So
Well, you have a question.
I have
from
one?
Jessica Wiseman.
again,
Yes. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned an empty feeling you get at times. Can you expound on that and explain what you think the cause is?
I mean,
Let me try
Sure.
to say what I understood you to say, and you tell me if it's right or wrong, if I understood you properly.
hit it.
All right, so what I understood you to say is that you have basically come to a point where you're no longer wishing to search anymore, and so you've decided to settle for the answer you have, which is you can't prove or disprove God, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and that leaves you empty feeling when you think about it because eternity could be a very long time. And so,
It is as long as it gets.
Yeah,
From what I
exactly.
understand.
well, I mean by say could be is
Yeah.
if there is an eternity, then it would be a very long time.
Right, and right now where I stand is I don't believe in an eternity for my consciousness.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
But that's why I said could. That's why I
Right.
modified that by saying it could be. Meaning
Right.
not that eternity itself obviously would be long, but if there is an eternity, it would be a very long time. And then so since you're agnostic, meaning you are open to you being wrong about eternity,
Right.
well, then
That's
that
where
would
the
be a very
emptiness
big
comes.
wrong thing to be.
Yeah.
And
I think that's pretty
where-
accurate.
Is that accurate?
But yeah, I mean, I can elaborate.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if I had.
Yeah, it's weird when it comes or why it comes, but it's definitely something that's like they're talking about death or
Mhm.
you know, and yeah, it's just that feeling of man. You think about, I don't know. I think about somebody taking somebody else's life and what that really means.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, and it's just like you made that person not exist anymore from how we understand consciousness, and just how black that is. How it's the absence of life, right?
Mhm.
That's really what death is.
Yeah.
It's not to have had a life. It means you no longer have a life. That's
Right.
all that matters in death. And so I get that feeling, but I understand it a certain way, and I've accepted it. But
Mhm.
the feeling is still there.
Right,
Like,
nags.
and it'll never go away. But it's less, and then it's more sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's less, and then it's more. It really depends on what's going on. Like in my marriage, like if I'm in an argument where Ellie's like, leave the house, like what am I losing? What do I have? I feel that feeling more because I've invested so much in her of my life, and I'm completely invested. So if there's any kind of like, oh man, this thing might be gone, this one thing that I've been living for, where does that leave me? At death, like aside from just dying alone.
Right. Right.
Where does it leave me as far as like my accomplishments and all this stuff? Like I think about legacy a lot because I feel like that's really all I have as an artist is who did you impact and how long will people be talking about you after you pass?
Right.
That's really, I think, as a businessman, it's how much money you make, and as an artist, it's what legacy do you have,
Mhm.
right? As far as like how
Yeah.
impactful of an artist you are. And right now, I don't have any legacy. Like I've impacted
Right.
maybe like 10 people, maybe. Who really knows? But it's definitely not like a legacy that I'm proud of, and I hope to get there one day. But I've also like accepted that I am where I am,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that because I'm trying. Like I'm trying to do my best, and I definitely impact people with coffee more for whatever reason. Like, and it's not just the coffee; it's the whole experience that you get when you come to Press Coffee.
Yeah. I found that I impact
Right.
people far more installing toilet papers than I ever did programming. So I installed toilet papers and I don't program, even though I'd much rather be a programmer.
Really,
Oh yeah, I hate doing what I do.
but you make more money doing what you do. You think?
Oh, and I have a far more effect on the world.
And so that gives you more purpose. as
Oh
far
yeah,
as your
it's more
job.
purposeful, absolutely.
That's so funny.
But what's interesting, and that was the other thing I was going to say about what you're saying is that most people, I wouldn't say most people, many people would be better, more accurate. Many people that I've read have found after they establish a legacy that empty feeling doesn't go away. That was Solomon's conclusion.
Well, I definitely think that there is no point at which I would be happy, with
Yeah.
my legacy. I've accepted that too.
Yeah.
Is that it's constantly reaching. It's
Yeah.
constantly trying for better. And then what really matters is after I'm dead, which I won't be able to see it. I won't be able to enjoy what my legacy is, and I've accepted that. But it's just about trying to create, about trying to bring
Yeah.
other people's ideas to light and finding purpose in it for whatever reason. I don't
Yeah.
know why I find purpose in this script versus this script, or this idea versus this idea. I don't know why or what I'm really doing. I definitely am not like, oh, I'm the director of photography. No, I just like try to make these ideas happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like an in-between guy. So I
Yeah.
don't even like take pride in that it's my idea. I don't have any pride in it to me, except like I was a part of this thing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and people enjoyed it, and so like that's my legacy. But
Right.
but I don't know. It's definitely not a selfish thing where I come from.
Well, I don't think that. Yeah. Right.
But
So
the
it's like,
emptiness is there. Yeah.
right. So like with what I do, I mean, every day I say every day, very often, I struggle with, how pointless what I do is. To me, it's just like ridiculously pointless.
Like at work. we're talking
Yeah,
about work.
putting up toilet paper holders on the
Right.
wall. It's like, I know, the people say, well, for the people that need toilet, I've lived in Mexico, you don't need a toilet paper holder.
No.
I can tell you right now, you just set it on the ground, it works just fine. All right? It's not,
It
you
only
just,
gets peed on.
yeah, they
you
use
know,
a coat
once in a
hanger
while.
or a piece of yarn. I mean, there's a million ways to do that, and I just look at it, and everyone's taking it so seriously. You would think we're like in the Manhattan Project, half an inch this way. There's like a book of federal regulations on where I have to put a toilet paper holder. It's absurd.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm dead serious.
I feel like my apartment complex definitely isn't abiding by that because it's
probably
not
not.
convenient.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, there's like state laws, federal laws, local laws. The architect will want to. I have to install them, and they'll come out and look at them before I can continue.
I'm more mad at the people who get paid to write those laws. Like why are
It's crazy. And I'm thinking of this, and we're going, and I'll be like, they're like, okay, put it on so the architect can come look at it. And so then we're waiting, right? Because they're important people, the architects, and I'm not. So you're waiting. You're paying all these wages, waiting. Finally, they come, and they're looking at it, and they look at it, and I'm just thinking, this is absurd. It is a stupid toilet paper holder.
sit down, see if it works?
You don't even need to look at it. It's not like we're inventing the wheel here, right? Every place you ever go has them. They all go in the same place. What are we looking at?
Is it the feng shui?
I don't know what it is. It's absurd. And so then I'm thinking, this is an absurd job that I'm doing, and my whole life.
How many
seems
times
to
are
be
they like,
absurdity.
no? How many times?
Oh, it does. It happens. It's like,
Like
can you move
like
it
half
over?
and half?
Can you move it over like a half? Can we go up an inch? Does it work? It's like, oh my goodness.
It's the architect's feng shui. It's what they believe. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a truth to that, but I definitely like every place I lived that I designed was not a place that anybody wanted to be, including me. and my wife knows how to decorate a place.
Well, that's my wife too. I mean, when you look at our house, this
But
is
can
all
you
my
explain
wife.
it?
No.
Yeah. So
If she were gone tomorrow, I would get rid of everything. It'd be bare walls.
and beanbag chairs.
No, I like the furniture, but the stuff on the walls would be gone. It's just like I have no interest in it.
Funny.
Yeah, so I struggle with that all the time. It's like, what's the purpose of it, and is there, what am I? And that's what you get in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, that's what Solomon says.
Yeah.
He got to be a successful king, thinking when I'm a successful king, then I'll be
I'll be
happy in
content.
life. What? I'll be content. And he says
Never.
no. He says it's not. None of this matters.
And I'm not looking for that fulfillment. I'm really not. And I think that's where why I can do the things I like to do.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not seeking that fulfillment. And maybe I should, and maybe Romans, the first 10 chapters will.
Well, but Romans doesn't deal with that, so you have to read a different book for that.
Let me get the philosophy down
you
first.
do the Romans one, but yeah. But basically, what Solomon's conclusion on it is that, and it goes back to this other world, this future world, that if there is a world in which there is no evil, and that world entering and being in that world is contingent on decisions we make in this world, then doing everything the best we can do it is what matters.
It's essential.
Is essential for entering into that world. Now, that does not mean that being a good person gets you there. The Bible is very clear in that that salvation through Jesus Christ, faith, and for very deep philosophical reasons, the sacrifice of Christ is essential. But that also does not negate that you can just believe in Christ and then be whatever you want to be.
Right.
See, that's what some Christians think, that we do. Well, it's not of works, so therefore works don't matter. And that is not
true.
at all what it's saying. In fact, Solomon and James and others are saying quite the opposite. They're saying your life now and who you are and being who you are in accordance with God's will, because it's a two thing. I can't just be what I want to be. That's not being a good person. And I can't just be what God wants me to be, because then that's not being me.
Right.
So it's about me
Understanding
doing who I am and doing it in accordance to his will.
Right.
So I'm going to install toilet papers in accordance to his will, right? Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but what would be God's will in that? Well, God's will in that is he doesn't like complaining. He's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually pretty logically sound. Most people don't like complainers, right? Some people do, but most people no.
Who does?
Yeah. So there's things about, well, I can look at that and say, what would God's will be on that? I think, and so then I try to do it that way. And that then is like, okay, then this is something that then serves the purpose far longer than what my life is.
Do you feel
if
like
I had
instead
to
of
build,
computer programming that you went into that thing so you'd have more people to work with, or
what's that?
like why'd you go into construction instead of?
Because it made money. I had to feed the family.
Got you.
There's no money in programming.
Really?
Oh no, you're competing with China.
Oh, okay.
Or with India. I mean, sorry,
And they
with India.
undercut you.
Yeah, you're competing with 1 billion people in India,
I see.
and they can do it from there. They don't have to come here.
I see.
But they can't install a toilet paper because they'd have to be here physically.
Right.
Right? They can't install a toilet partition or a marker board on the wall.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so it's like they pay me obscene amounts of money to do this. You have no idea.
Cool.
It's ridiculous how much money they pay to have this done.
So I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
No,
Something-
it's just that
Are y'all getting hungry?
we are.
I know.
Yeah, I think we need to wrap it up. Anyways, we good?
Good.
All right.
This
Well,
is how you're
Scott,
gonna end it?
yeah, that's how we end it. We just see, Terry always hates my sermon endings because that's how I end my sermons.
You do.
I
you,
do. I just stop. I'm
it's like
boom.
every Oscar movie winner. It's just like what?
Yeah.
Why?
I love those endings. It's like I actually design my sermons that way. It's like I'm talking and then all of a sudden I'm not. And everyone's like, what? And it's like, I want you to think about it. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want to tell you to think, not what to think.
No, okay. So,
And so, yeah.
all right, so this has been the Freeborn Podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Like
Give
and
us
subscribe. And
yeah, get your
comment.
plug in. You're invited.
Remember, you're always invited. No, that's something I do on voiceovers. I do all these things, and I'm like, and remember, you're always invited.
Scott, we really appreciate
It
you
was so
coming
much
in. It was a
fun.
great,
Social distancing.
great conversation. I enjoyed it.
Do you have
And-
sanitizer? I can't.
yeah, no, we don't. We don't believe in it.
And y'all
So-
don't drink, so I have nothing to pour on those.
I know, right? So, thanks for being with us. We'll be here next Saturday. I'm not sure who we're going to be with. We're trying to get your brother in.
Oh, tight.
But he's a good Corona guy. He doesn't want to go out and I think that's what it is. I don't know.
I think it's his wife too.
Oh, I'm trying to get him over here though. I want to talk to him about Bible translations.
Oh, yummy.
Yeah. So, anyways, thanks for coming, and we'll be here next Saturday at 9:00. God bless you.